Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Small Screen Star Wars. As always, I'm Julian Mush. I am joined by Rachel Wilkinson.
Hello.
And we're going to be talking about today Season 1, Episode 6 of the Book of Boba Fett, From the Desert Comes a Stranger. Sorry, it's Chapter 6, not Episode 6. But
yes.
I'm just used to episodes being for TV. It is what it is. The log line for this episode is mysteries are explored and Boba Fett learns new information, which might be set a new record for the least information provided in
I don't
a
even know
log
why
line.
they bother giving us these descriptions.
Yeah, just leave it. Like, you should just say not applicable. Like, just not whatever.
Yeah, it's funny.
This episode, very exciting for lots of people. Directed by Dave Filoni. Everyone gets excited when Dave gets behind gets in the director's chair. Written by Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni. So, he's done other episodes of Mandalorian in the past. That was kind of his first breakthrough into live action. So he's kind of getting his feet under him still a little bit to some degree. But usually when Dave Filoni directs an episode, something exciting is about to happen. And you could argue that that's what happened today. So we're going to get all into that in just a second. But before we do, I have one brief announcement to make, and also just the regular reminders to follow us on Twitter. At Tower Babblecast on Twitter, Facebook.com/Tower Babblecast. Lots of Star Wars conversation on there, especially today. I yelled at a guy yesterday because, yeah, I did. And it even gave me the warning to say, hey, are you sure you want to tweet this? And I was like, yeah, I do. Because
I love that
the person, I think it's a good overall inclusion on Twitter, like, hey, sober second thought or whatever. But this person posted a spoiler on as an image on Twitter, and I had a bunch of things blocked. Like, I had muted Book of Boba Fett, all the hashtags, all that kind of stuff. But this got through somehow, and I was like, dude, and it was at 10 a.m. yesterday, and I was like, dude, F you for posting this, because what do you the show's barely about. And he kind of tried to explain to me that no, it's my fault for going on social media, knowing that I should be aware. Listen, I'm not going to have this argument with this person, but other people agreed with me, and then they deleted their tweets. So
it's a courtesy rule on social media to not post anything for about 24 hours or 12 hours one day. Yeah. It's just okay, man, you want to tweet something tonight? Sure, that's fine.
Yeah,
whatever.
totally
that's a little
fine.
More leeway. But if you're posting things in the morning when most people didn't stay up all night, or didn't stay up, not all night, but didn't stay up late watching the night before. Some of us have jobs.
Okay, so this is where it's
watch it that late at night.
This is an easy solution, by the way.
Yeah.
I've been trying to figure this. It's common courtesy, which is what I had said to them, and they're didn't agree with me, but whatever. And then it comes back to this whole idea, why are we dropping these episodes in the middle of the goddamn night? It doesn't make any sense to me. Book of Boba Fett comes out at 8 p.m. Eastern every Wednesday.
Yeah,
that's a simple solution, but instead we have to deal with. I have to mute stuff on my social media just so I don't get spoiled the next day when I'm checking on the COVID numbers. So it's
exactly.
It's really dumb. Anyway,
I like to do my daily morning troll through Twitter.
Yeah,
and I would rather not have spoilers.
Yeah, so, listen, I'm doom scrolling here. Leave me alone.
Yeah, no, but like we said, it's common courtesy to wait 24 hours kind of thing. And what time does it actually come out at 2 a.m.? Our time? I don't know what our time it is.
But the 2 a.m. I think for us in the Central Time Zone. Yes.
Look, I'm old. I can't stay up that late anymore and wake up for my job the next morning.
If I was still working at the bar and I was coming home from the bar at 3 a.m.
Absolutely.
I would flip that on. Absolutely. No problem. I'd still be drunk.
Or if it was a Friday, I'd probably watch. But on a Wednesday, 2 a.m., I'm asleep. So most people. But
yeah. So anyway,
people backed you up because Twitter can get pretty psycho. Sometimes.
It's a little. I don't know what I've been doing. I've been getting into a lot of Twitter fights lately. I don't know why. I think that this. I don't know. I'm sick. Someone help me. I don't know.
It's really easy though. It's not it's hard.
Well, I had a conversation today about this new the liberals are reintroducing that Bill C-11 or whatever about the internet privacy, and it's a lot of bullshit. So I was tweeting about that, and then I got into this whole long thing with this guy. I don't want to get into it, but it's basically this whole CanCon thing. Anyway, that's not important. Yeah. But what is important is that there's a way to support the show, and that is patreon.com/TowerBabbleCast. Now, the reason I bring that up, because I don't bring that up every episode, the reason I bring it up today is because we do a special, private, exclusive film club, essentially a book club, but for movies. Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Every month on the Patreon. It's exclusive. And we had done last month. What movie did we do last month? Misery.
Misery. Oh, you remember this time.
Yeah, it's good. It was a good movie.
It's
really,
a good movie, yeah.
Really glad we saw that. And then typically we announce the next month's movie in that episode. And I did do that. It was my pick, and I had picked Broadcast News. Now, I was excited to see that movie, but I had reached out to another podcaster I actually have a lot of respect for, and said, hey, I know you're into this movie a lot. Would you want to come on the show and talk about it? And they're like, it's funny, I would, but I had just seen, and it's funny because this is something that no one really talks about ever, but this like dead zone between when you've seen a movie, right? But you don't want to see it again right away,
Right.
He's like, I've just seen it, but like not close enough that I'd want to rewatch it again. But
yeah,
not
there
be...
is one.
Yeah,
I totally get that. Yeah.
It's hard. We don't talk about that very often. It's very,
yeah.
it's a very unique thing to maybe like movie podcasting. But anyway,
yeah.
So he's like, what about instead we do a different movie? And I was like, okay, fair enough. If opportunity to bring on a cool guest, I can be flexible. So we decided to go with Gone Girl, the David Fincher movie, instead. So. Because nothing's quite official yet, I'm not going to announce who the guest is until we get much closer to the actual recording itself, But
just one more reason to become a patron.
Just one more reason to become a patron. Exactly. So I'm really excited about this. We might have another special guest for the Uncharted review that we have coming up later this month. I'm really excited about that. But again, I'm not going to reveal anything until closer to have more confirmation. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to speak out of school. So that's a lot of stuff before we get into a really long breakdown, because I think today listen, we try to keep these to about an hour. Last week was about an hour and a half. Yeah. This week might be about the same, hoping it's not much longer than that. But there's a lot to talk about here. So again, this is season 1, chapter 6, From the Desert Comes a Stranger. Really cool title, I think. One of the coolest that we've had this year, this season. It could be so many things, right? There's the obvious one of the quote unquote stranger at the very end of the episode, correct? There's also, Luke is also a stranger to these people, comes from the desert. We're also talking about, Mando, who's coming from the desert to see, Luke, who's also a stranger to him. So there's a lot of cool shades here, but also it just really reminds me of a Western, and this episode has a lot of Western influence. So
100%.
And also, before we get into it, I'm drinking a paper plane, a cocktail of choice, I think, for a Star Wars podcast, because it's like essentially bright orange. It's a really fun, like Star Wars themed drink, I think. So I wanted to get into the mood.
I'll open the feed on Twitter so I can see.
Oh yeah, it's bright. It's bright orange. You
still have
it's
Jeremy's
really cool.
photo up, which is hilarious. In case anyone's
do
wondering,
I?
He's not on the. He's not on the episode today.
Yeah, let me switch that over. Hold on.
It's just Jeremy's face is cameoing on this episode. So if you're watching live,
I should make sure he gets in the credits of this episode. Yeah.
But you're right. That is a very orange drink. It kind of looks like a Negroni from my side of the world.
It's a little brighter in color than a Negroni, I'd say. Okay, that's enough preamble, right? Let's get into this in the fullest fashion. So we start on Mospelgo, the territories of Mospelgo, Freetown, depending on what you want to call it. There's a drug deal going down. And in the desert, it starts really. The first shot is of moisture evaporators, which is, I think, this kind of allusion to the old West windmill stuff. Obviously awesome. And so we see this drug deal going on. It's 4 pikes. They say that this is weird, actually, because I was ready to kind of like just quickly move on. Okay, 4 pikes, 3 of them are shot. Whatever. We move on.
Right.
But there's this weird line at the beginning here that says, quote, "Leave the spice and take the credits back to Mos Eisley. The rest will follow." And I don't know what the hell they're talking about.
Yeah.
Like, what is that? I don't even know what that means. Like, they're talking to each other. They're on the same team, right? Like, what do they mean by leave the spice? Leave the spice in the middle of the desert?
Maybe.
Take the credit. Who paid them the credits? I don't understand. I don't really get that one. And I was hoping you might have some more insight, but it's kind of confusing. I don't know.
Yeah, you know what? Because that's what the Pikes are talking to each other, right?
Yeah.
At that point? Yeah, honestly, that probably just went right past my radar. I guess I didn't really notice, unless they just mean like, yeah, I honestly have no clue.
It makes no sense. I don't
know why two groups of Pikes would be like dealing with each other, or whether they're just like checking out the. But yeah, it doesn't make sense why they would be like checking the spice itself. Yeah, you're right.
But like, what do you mean by leave the spice? Anyway, it reminds me of this. I was just scrolling through IMDb, and there's how there's the did you know section where it has trivia, goofs, quotes, and other stuff. So one of the goofs here, it says, and this is not a goof, but I think it's just funny. It just says, "It makes no sense to smuggle spice on the ground in speeders, since the syndicate could just use a spaceship and avoid all the hassle."
Yeah, honestly.
Like, why are we using trains and speeders and all these other things? Just fly over there.
Yeah,
in your spaceships. And they also take public transportation because they arrive on those like Starliner things. Yeah. Anyway, it's very funny. But I think this is basically it could be just like placeholder dialogue, whatever. Probably, but it doesn't really make any sense. We're not going to spend a lot of time on it.
Unless it could just be somebody in that area, like in Cobb Vanth's area there,
right,
has paid for that spice, and they're just like, yeah, leave it here because someone here bought it. And
right.
But unless it's some kind of drug
but
deal
it's worth more than the town, right?
Yeah,
so like who's buying it?
Yeah.
So this also, of course, ushers in the return of Cobb Vanth. We haven't seen him since episode 1 of season 2 of Mandalorian.
Did you get like a Negan feel from him from like Walking Dead? I don't know if you're a big Walking Dead watcher.
I know Negan. I don't watch The Walking Dead. I think any show that doesn't have that has no idea where it's going is not a show that I'm really interested in watching.
Fair enough.
But
I don't know what it was, just the way he was dressed. I think maybe it was the red scarf just gave me a very Negan feel to him.
Well, and he just like really embodies the like old school Western martial.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like, literally everything about it is exactly just pulled straight from a Western, except instead of a gun, he has a blaster. Like, that's literally the only difference.
Which is basically the gun. It's a space gun.
Yeah, right? Yeah. So it's pretty cool. To me, it's pretty cool. Like how when they go, like they see him and he's like, think it through. And he says it twice, which is cool. Like, hey, think about what you're doing because I can shoot you. You know, what a cool line. This whole episode is chock full of like really great lines and that I'll just be quoting constantly because they're just like, they just do such a good job of embodying these characters and just these quick one-liners. I think that's where like Filoni kind of really shines, is in these kind of these dialogue moments. Less in terms of maybe his actual directing and how the actual episode's put together. Because I think overall this episode's weird how it jumps around a little bit, and I don't think it jumps around in a way that like Game of Thrones used to jump around in an episode, and that was sometimes good, sometimes bad. I feel like this is mostly fine, but there's some odd choices. We'll talk about them when we get to them.
Yeah, okay, fair enough, because it didn't bug me, but yeah, we can chat when we get there.
Yeah, it's mostly closer to the end.
Okay.
That's fine. And then I guess since we're talking about the episode as a whole, you know, we talked about this last week, and I think it still applies here. What the hell are we doing spending all this time with them? Boba Fett does not have a single line of dialogue. At least he appears in the episode.
He nods.
He nods. Yep. Yeah. And I think that might have something to do with like, hey, we can actually save money if he doesn't have any dialogue, we don't have to pay him as much. Maybe, like, I don't know. But
that would be a ridiculous thing to be worried about saving money on.
Why would you put him in the show and then not give him?
Yeah, the character that the show is like titled after. I feel like that'd be an insane reason. But,
I think it's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, unless they're going to be doing maybe a little bit more of some more crossover stuff with some of the other shows that are coming out, like not necessarily like Kenobi or anything.
Sure.
But maybe we're going to see a little bit of Boba Fett in Mandalorian too. So like,
well, we already have, right? But
yeah,
Boba Fett wasn't the main character
no,
in the Mandalorian. You know what I'm saying?
But you never know, because I'm like, I don't know how they're going to finish this season in one more episode. So,
well, maybe if they hadn't spent 2 episodes telling the story of the Mandalorian, we wouldn't have to have that question.
But like, I'm not mad about it. I'm just going to say that right off the
bat.
I'm not mad about these episodes,
it's fine because the episodes themselves are really good.
They're so good.
It's just, but like, it's just baffling to me. And there's been it's weird watching on Twitter. There's been a bit of it's kind of flip flop. Like at first, people were like, "This is weird that Boba Fett didn't appear in his own show." And then there's like this whole thing. It's like, it's really on brand for Boba Fett to only appear in an episode of his show and then not say anything, which I think is very funny. But then it's gone even further than that, where people are like, "No, this is how Star Wars tells stories." I'm like, aren't you aware of the Clone Wars? The Clone Wars did stuff like this all the time, and I'm like, I just fundamentally disagree with that perspective, and I'll explain why.
Fair enough.
The Clone Wars as a show did jump around a lot. It would do 2-3 episode arcs of different things. Some people liked, some didn't. The droid arc, that kind of stuff.
I like the droid arc.
Yeah, some people do. That's fair. It's just, and there's a lot of cool stuff in it. It's just very hard at times to like be like, man, this is going a lot longer than I expected. Anyway, the point is, the Clone Wars established a scope that was much larger than just Obi-Wan and Anakin. Like, if it was called the Anakin Obi-Wan show, and it spent a whole season telling a whole different story, that would be super annoying.
And
right?
The Clone Wars is also about like a massive war that was going on across multiple systems.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like, it makes sense. Yeah, I get that argument 100%. It's just, I totally understand people's gripes with where we're kind of heading with Book of Boba Fett, but yeah, I don't know.
I agree with the gripes. I disagree with the idea that like we should just accept it as like normal. It's not normal. It's weird to me to call a show the Book of Boba Fett, spend 4 episodes with that main character, establish a story where there's flashbacks. We're doing all this work to build up the character, put the pieces in place, and then completely leave that aside and go tell a completely different story. And
it's interesting. I just keep hoping. Like, I think it'll make more sense all wrapped up
next week.
I really do think it will.
I hope so.
Yeah.
the one thing that people keep saying is like, well, maybe. Well, not people. I wouldn't say. I've heard this once. And I was thinking about this before we started recording. In terms of like, what would make sense? Like, how could you make what we just saw these last 2 episodes make sense in context for the final episode? Would be if Luke and Grogu appeared in the next episode.
That'd be insane.
On Tatooine, right?
That'd be absolutely insane. But yeah, I mean, that's
true.
But
it kind of makes sense, right? Because Luke has connections to Tatooine, obviously, right? Yeah. He's, he would be in a lot of ways returning home, and there's some interesting stuff there, right? So it's like just quickly to talk about the end. If Grogu chooses the armor, right, and Luke follows through with what he said, well, if you choose the armor, then we'll take you back to see the Mandalorian. If that happens, and Luke brings him back and then gets caught up in this war with between Boba Fett, and like obviously there's history with Boba Fett and all this other stuff, right? That's interesting. So maybe they're getting to that point, and they needed to reintroduce Luke and Grogu so that they could make it work, but unless that happens, I can't really think of a reason why it needed to go this way. I don't know. This is the Mandalorian season 3, episode 2. In a lot of essentially. Okay. Any other thoughts on that?
No. I think we can just kind of hop right into it.
Okay.
And start
We're still at the beginning of the episode. Yeah. So I literally haven't got past the first dot. I have 7 pages of notes. So the drug deal's going down, and we got Cobb Vanth back. Obviously, great to see him. Love me some Timothy Olyphant. After I saw him the first episode of season 2 of Mando, I really was like, well, I should just watch Deadwood. Like, why am I not I still do want to watch Deadwood, but I refuse to subscribe to Crave, so it's just much harder, So so anyway, he's doing this like think it through stuff. He gives them a chance to leave. I love this whole thing where he's like, listen, you probably don't know where you are. It's all a misunderstanding. You haven't opened that box yet, so you haven't broken any laws as far as I'm concerned. We'll just go our separate ways and no one has to get hurt, right? Which is, pretty cool stuff. They go to grab their guns. He shoots 3 of them, right? He probably could have taken out the 4th one, but he leaves one to kind of send a message. The message is really cool. Anyone gets lost running spice through Mos Pelgo will be lost forever.
Right.
I even put in a little accent there. I don't know if you picked that up. It's such a cool line because he says it with like this like slight grit of anger,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, gave me tingles, gave me shivers. Loved it. So he says, leave the spice. You can take your money. The guy's like, I can't leave the spice. It's worth more than your town, right?
Yeah.
And which is a great line.
It is.
But he's like, that's fine. So he goes off. The guy leaves to send this message. He kicks over the case, and the spice goes blowing into the sand. Very much Dune inspired again. And we even get his theme because I don't know if you remember, but Cobb Vanth actually has his own theme.
Oh, I do not remember his theme.
It's really cool.
Okay.
And so it plays a little bit as the Pikes leave. We get his theme there, and I'm like, ooh, I was right into this episode from that exact moment. What did you make of this first scene?
Yeah, I really enjoyed seeing Cobb Vanth again for sure. And like I said, I kind of got like Negan vibes because we're seeing him without the Met or the Boba Fett armor. Yeah, I thought it was very interesting sort of interaction between him and the Pikes and kind of.
Sorry, I'm choking on my.
I can hear you choking in the background.
I forgot how to drink and went down the wrong way.
Oh my god.
Oh, sorry. I apologize.
I know, it's okay. It's okay. It's important that you
gotta stay hydrated.
Get some air in those lungs.
Oh man.
But yeah, no, I enjoy this interaction, and I always like his kind of cowboy aesthetic and his little bit of a tiny bit of a southern accent. Like I very much enjoy
just
his
enough.
character.
Yeah,
just enough that it's not like hokey or too cheesy, but it works.
I think it is a little hokey, but it's like
I think it works.
But it works. Like it's hokey, but it works. I think that's kind of always been Star Wars' like line that they kind of seem to walk. Right? It's hokey, but still works a lot of the times. Sometimes it goes over the line a little bit.
Is it just me, or does it only seem like he fires 2 shots and kills 3 of them?
I didn't catch that, but if that's true, that's very funny.
It seems like that first, he shoots the first shot and it hits 2 of them, and then the second shot he takes out the.
That's even cooler then. But it reminds me of when Luke kicks the air and knocks that guy off from Return of the Jedi.
I mean, yeah.
It's and that one's so funny because it's like so obvious too. But yeah.
It just kind of gave me a little bit of the like who shot first thing or Han shot first. You know what I mean? Like it kind of reminded me a little bit of that. I feel like we get a lot of little throwback things.
Oh, there's so many throwbacks in the set. Like
it's great.
Maybe too many. Like you could even argue that there's too many.
There were some that we called while watching it. It was super funny.
Yeah.
But
no, me too. I was having a blast watching this episode. I was really into it. So cut to a lush green planet. Name unknown at this time. Mando jumps from hyperspace in his fancy new N1, lands on the world. He's greeted by R2-D2. Obviously, that's awesome. You kind of get that first little like antenna thing, and I was like, R2.
Yeah, immediately I'm like, oh, it's R2. Obviously, I get so excited every time I get to see him.
Yeah, and R2 is exciting. I like when he does the little dance when Ahsoka like rubs his head. Right?
I know. His little shuffles are my favorite. It always gives me like puppy dog vibes.
Oh, totally. So I love how he lands and then he says, "Greetings, friend."
I know. I noticed that too.
Isn't that nice?
Yeah, it's great. Because we're kind of getting him slowly liking droids more and more,
or at least being like he doesn't hate them. Yeah.
Yeah, he called him friend. It's very sweet.
And like it's nice that he does that with R2 because we obviously know that R2 is the best. So.
Oh yeah, you can't be rude to R2 unless you're C-3PO.
Yeah, that's right.
He's the only one who's allowed to be mean to him.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
What does he call him? You overstuffed bucket of bolts or something like that?
Something like that. I think he calls it like a trash bin at some point or garbage can. Like it's always
So he's guided through this bamboo forest by R2. I don't know if it was just me, but did you catch how R2 had like a little runway underneath the leaves to roll on?
I didn't catch that.
I was just thinking, I was like, man, he's really rolling through this like the like I don't know, like quarter down, this or like what is that when you have like the bark and stuff?
You are asking the wrong.
I don't.
person.
Anyway, it doesn't matter. The stuff that
floor.
Yeah, like, but he's like rolling around on it like it's like a hardwood floor, and then I'm like, I look, and it's like you can kind of see a little stretch of like, again, like runway that's like hidden underneath the leaves, but I guess not hidden that well.
Is it like? Do you think it's supposed to be hidden? Like it's there?
It's not like it's there to make sure that the machine that is R2-D2 in the real world can move through this scene.
I thought you were saying that it looked like it was kind of built there like on purpose.
No,
that world for him.
No, this is a goof. I think, in my opinion, it should be under that. It should be right next to that other goof in the Wikipedia, the IMDb, right next to they should use spaceships to run spice instead of speeders.
Right.
I wonder if it's in there. Let me take a peek here.
Now,
okay, here we go. Here's another one. It is cruel and senseless for Luke Skywalker to put such a monumental choice before Grogu, who is still an immature child by his own development's timescale. That's not a goof, but that's funny. Character error is what it's called here. Chillax here, guys.
Yeah.
And plot holes. It would make no sense for the gunslinger to not kill the marshal, but leave him behind alive and wounded. Needless loose end. I see what he's doing here. That's spelt wrong. After the shootout, when he had to time, and he had him dead to rights, it just means there is a risk for the marshal to come after the gunslinger and the syndicate to take his revenge in the future. Whatever.
See, I took something different from that, and then I guess maybe we can discuss it when we get to it. But
sure. I'd appreciate that
now,
they call them the gunslinger in this.
The gunslinger, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think we're on Yavin 4 right now with the whole
Luke's
Academy thing, or no?
I don't think so. So in Legends, in Star Wars Legends, Luke creates his Jedi Academy on Yavin 4.
Okay, so that's not canon then?
That's not canon anymore.
Okay, I see.
In the sequel trilogy, we see flashes to this. Obviously, the same building. We see that like little archway, right?
Right. We just they don't ever say what planet it is.
They don't ever reveal the name of the planet, and then there has been appearances of it in the comics, but like in the Kylo Ren, like the Rise of Kylo Ren, I think it's called.
Yes, it is.
They also don't name it there, so we don't know. We don't know, and then we also know that Luke trains Leia on a different planet that it has been named. So, anyway,
okay.
This is still, like I said, unknown planet for the time being. I'm sure it'll get a name at some point.
It's super secret, even from us.
Well, it's super secret, even from the people making the show, probably. So anyway, I keep get stuck on the wrong things here. Mando enters a clearing with a bunch of ants, essentially ant droids.
Loved the ant droids.
Did you like the little fake out with the rock coming out of the hole? So right when so there's the first shot of the ant droid we get is an ant droid carrying a rock out of a hole. Right, and it looks at first like the rock is floating until you see the rest of the droid.
Yes.
I thought that was like a fun little thing. Like, ooh, I think, are we going to see... Obviously, R2's here, so we're going to see Luke. And there's obviously that line from The Last Jedi, where it's like, yeah, it's the power the Jedi have to lift rocks or whatever.
Yeah. I do love that Luke just has a bunch of droids doing the work. He's just like, I'm not doing it. He could easily build this thing. You think this makes sort of like Jedi right that they need to build their own little temple or their own little thing?
I don't think that's true. At the Jedi Temple in Coruscant, they had like all sorts of people hired to like do sorts of stuff.
But this just seems a little bit more rustic, and I'm judging Luke for not doing it himself and being lazy.
I mean, what if he built those droids?
Okay. Yeah, sure.
And they're probably a gift. But either way, I think I like the idea. Funny. I think the ant droids are cool. Like they're working as like a colony. Yeah.
I thought that was really clever. I'm like, oh, they're like little ants that are kind of building this little hut. I thought it was a very unique take on kind of builder droids.
Yeah, totally. And like, I don't know what they're doing when they're not building stuff. Like should it just always be building stuff, or like what's the deal? But like it doesn't matter. So this is obviously Luke's Jedi Academy, right? A Jedi temple, one might say. They don't really describe it. I mean, Ahsoka calls it an academy, school, I think. R2 tells one of the droids something and then just turns off. It's so funny to me because like all we really know of R2 after from the sequel trilogy is that he spends a lot of time sleeping.
Yeah.
You know? Like he's just old and now he just sleeps now. That's his that's his whole deal.
Yeah, it's my favorite because I feel like when he talks to that droid, he basically tells him like, "Yeah, build him a bench."
Yeah, that's what he's telling him.
Waiting for a while. He's for sure telling him that, and then he just turns off. It's so like not passive aggressive, but it's just such an R2 move.
It's classic R2 move. Yeah, just trolling,
sneaky and trolling. Exactly. Yeah. Like, oh, you're here to see Luke. I'm actually gonna quietly call Ahsoka.
I'm gonna build a bench and turn off.
I'm gonna build a bench for you and turn off and not tell you anything.
Yeah, no, it's so good.
I love it.
So, so that's a good question. So you think that when he's landing, that little antenna is actually sending a message to Ahsoka to come?
Yes and no, but I think maybe when he powers down or somehow, like, he's got to call Ahsoka because she hears from R2 that Mando has shown up, and I got
the impression that she was already there on the planet. That was the impression I got.
I got the impression that like she wasn't there yet, and that's why R2 powers down and gives Mando a bench because they're waiting for Ahsoka to get there. But
that may be true.
Maybe he could just beep her like because they have comm links, right? That they kind of just flash when it's like, okay, I got to get back. But yeah, because I feel like Ahsoka leaves right away after giving you know what I mean? So I don't think she's there all the time.
Well, yeah, especially because he says like, "Will I ever see you again?" or whatever.
Yeah, so I mean, who knows? But I was kind of just under the impression, regardless of whether she's elsewhere on the planet or somewhere else, it's kind of like R2 being like,
"That's what she's given a call." Yeah,
here's this bench. You can wait.
Well. It's so funny because I was like, when that started happening, I was like, "Are they building a bench?" And then the next thing that happened was Mando was like, "Is that a bench?" And I was like, "That's so funny to me." I love that. That was so good. How long am I supposed to be waiting here?
Yeah, just turns off.
Yeah, it's good stuff. So, cut to Luke and Grogu. We get a scene with them meditating. There's a frog jumping by. And by the way, before I guess we even get into this, how crazy is it that we're getting Luke and Grogu in this episode?
I know. I was not expecting that at all. I was very excited about it, obviously.
Well, I mean, we kind of talked about it last week. It was like, is the show... We basically both said, there's no way the show is going to follow Mando to go visit Grogu and we're going to see Luke again. We were all like, there's no way.
I know. I absolutely did not think that was going to happen. I was like, okay, well, maybe we'll see it at the beginning of the season of The Mandalorian. I don't know. But yeah, I was not expecting it, but I was wrong. So
it's a pleasant surprise. I mean, if we have to do this, it's a very pleasant surprise. And then even more so, Ahsoka being a big surprise, I think, because even if we went back there, I didn't expect to see Ahsoka at all.
Yeah.
Even if we saw Luke, so that was surprising.
Episode, so
so she has to appear.
Yeah.
Contractually.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, I think Luke looks way better here.
He looks great. Yeah.
So much better. I have to pinch myself.
Complaining. Or not,
I didn't. It was It was actually the opposite. People were like, "Wow, look how much better he looks." It's still a little weird at some points.
Occasionally, but for the most part, I was just like, "Holy crap, they did a really good job."
I think it's mostly good enough. Like,
yeah,
it really does at certain moments just feel like, oh wow, they just pulled Mark Hamill right out of the '80s and put him in this new show. Like, it's really cool. And so I think a lot of people are saying, "Oh, this is the work of that YouTuber that Lucasfilm hired." We talked about this at the end of Mando season 2, or we may not have, but I know it was a conversation. So there was this YouTuber that had gone in and fixed, quote unquote, the Luke from that episode, who did look bad. I think we said that at the time. He looks bad.
I didn't think it looked that bad, but
it's brutal. But this guy goes in and he fixed it. He made it look way better. And so Lucasfilm was like, "Okay, we'll just hire you." So they hired this guy. Right? And we lost Rachel. Hold on. Technical difficulties. One moment, please. Apologies.
But okay, anyway, so this guy on YouTube was like, "Hey, I can make that look better," and then Disney straight up hired him. That's crazy.
Yeah, 100%. Yes, that's what happened. Yes.
That's
Yes.
awesome. Could you imagine being that person? Like, I'm gonna troll them, be like, "Look how much better I am at this," and then you get a job.
I think it's great.
Yeah, like, I mean, your shot, right?
Yeah, I mean, like to me, it's like what took them so long is more like,
Yeah.
you know.
I feel bad for the person who did the first run of Luke's face, and they're like, "Oh man, they're just out of a job now."
Well, I mean, I'm sure they're still employed. They just maybe got
Yeah.
assigned to something else.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, it's a specific type. It's like a very specific field. Like this deepfake stuff is not. It's like super easy. Some people are better at it than
Right.
others. I mean, it's like
No,
okay,
that's fair.
hey, there's someone who proved that they can do what we tried to do and failed. So why don't we just get the best? And like it's clearly paid off because Luke looks great here. There's just something about just being like, wow, how crazy is it that we're just watching this episode of Star Wars that just has a young Luke Skywalker in it? Just it kind of blows your mind. It's, if you told me that, 10 years ago, I would have been like, wouldn't have believed you. I'm like, no, there's no way,
Right, yeah.
So that element, I think we just have to put that element aside and just be like, yep, Luke's here.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it really is mind boggling just to imagine, like, hey, we're just going to tell the story. Luke's going to be here. Ahsoka's going to be here. R2, what more do you need? Right.
I mean, I was very content. So
Yes, me too. So anyway, they're meditating. A frog is jumping by. We know how much Grogu loves to eat frogs.
Yeah.
And anyway, it's distracting Grogu. It's very cute. I think they really have figured out how to make Grogu work. And so he's like, one eye slowly opens and he gets distracted. So he uses the Force to lift over the frog, and she's about to eat it, I think. And then Luke is like disappointed in him, right? Which causes Grogu to drop the frog, and it escapes back in the pond. So Luke decides to give Grogu kind of a different lesson, right? And uses the Force to lift all the frogs from the pond. There's, I don't know, 10 of them or whatever. Grogu looks really pleased, but there's this kind of look of like he doesn't appear that he doesn't feel like he could do that. He kind of looks disappointed in himself. What do you make of this lesson? What do you think Luke's trying to impart here as a lesson?
Thinking about that, and I don't know. There's like a few different things that ran through my head. I'm just not too sure. Like, I wasn't too sure if he's kind of showing him, about maybe like patience. It's like, yeah, I know you just saw like one frog, but there's plenty more where that comes from. Like,
sure,
focus now and worry about that later, because it's not like you need to eat that right now. Or I don't know whether he was trying to show him like, look at this frog and all of its family members. I don't know.
I think maybe it's part of it is like, hey, if you keep practicing, you too could do this one day. You could have as many frogs as you can eat.
Yeah, like, look, like there's 20 of them in this thing. Like, you don't have to worry about just that one. And I wasn't too sure, but that makes a lot of sense where it's like, yeah, if you keep learning and stop getting distracted, it'll make your life a lot easier.
Yeah, and part of it is just like showing us that Luke is still very powerful, obviously, as a Jedi, but there's very little to no dialogue here, and it's just a really good job of kind of telling us something without actually having to use dialogue. Show, don't tell, and it's just showing us that Luke has a lot of power, and that in showing Grogu that one day he could be as powerful, and he can eat as many frogs as he wants.
Yeah.
Exactly. So anyway, like I said, Grogu looked kind of disappointed in himself. So Luke decides that they should go for a walk, and they. This is the craziest thing. Like, it makes sense, but I thought it was like blew my mind. I was like, oh, Luke is just keeps lifting Grogu and like guiding him forward so he like maintains his pace.
I thought that was the cutest thing, because he's getting his little waddles in, and then he just slowly like sweeps him forward. Gets his couple little waddle walks in, sweeps him forward. I don't know. It kind of reminds me of like how you walk with like little kids, and like you have to like pick them up halfway through. Like, it was very sweet moment. I thought it was
I liked his little I liked Luke's little like fingers together kind of like pensive walk that he's doing. He's kind of like, and he just slowly, like every once in a while, go whoop, here you go, and then back to his little like meditation walk, and then here you go.
He's still letting him do it himself. Like he's still letting him walk and letting him, go through the motions. But every once in a while, he's like, "Yeah, we're just gonna."
Well, it's because if Luke walked at the pace that Grogu was going, it'd be like, wow, we'd be here all day,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So I just thought it was really cute. It's really it's like a little thing that I think it's really easy to have Luke just pick him up and carry him. I think that'd be a simple thing to do, but this is much more interesting. I really appreciate the show for doing that. So they go for the walk. He's like, listen, I want to tell you about a friend of mine, and he starts telling him about Yoda, right? He's this little guy, but his heart was huge.
Yeah.
And then he gives him the lesson about, he said, one time he told me size matters not, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, of course, at the time, he was talking about, he was telling Luke that the size of the ship doesn't matter.
Right, because he's trying to get the ship out of the sinkhole.
Yeah, that he's trying to get his X-Wing out of the swamp.
Yeah.
But the lesson was greater than that, and what is cool here, I think, again, interesting, and give the show a lot of credit, because he's not just taking that lesson at face value, right? He understood the lesson at its core understanding, which is that it's not just the size of the thing that you're trying to lift, which is true, and if you're using the Force, but it's also the size of the person. It's not the size of the bite in the what's the bark in the dog, that that one. That's that saying. It's basically that saying.
Yeah.
Not really. It's kind of different saying. But anyway, so and then he says, like, he would speak like that. He would speak in riddles.
Yeah.
It's very cute. And then I love this part. He's like, have you heard anyone talk like that back home? He wants to know if everyone talks like that, which is such a he's like, are you gonna grow up and start talking like that? Is that how you're gonna speak?
Yeah. Which is something kind of everyone wants to know.
Yes, everyone wants to know that.
We're all waiting for Grogu to start speaking to see if he's gonna talk like Yoda or not.
Exactly. And my understanding was that Yaddle didn't speak like that, but it's not canon, because I think her speaking, I think, only appeared in comics or whatever, and I don't think they're considered canon anymore. But either way, it's still a mystery. It's funny that Luke is super curious because we're super curious. I always appreciate that. Kind of like last week when they when Mando cut his leg. That's one of those fan servicey moments that don't feel that fan servicey to me, because it's just people being curious. Of course, you'd want to know, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I guess the question is how would he answer? Grogu can't speak yet, but I guess they can commune. They can commune with the Force. And so then there's this kind of this moment where he's like, well, do you want to remember? I can help you. So he kind of does this mind meld with him.
Oh, yeah.
And we get a flashback to Order 66.
Yeah,
and
not expecting that.
Neither was I, and I thought it was awesome. Yeah, I thought it was super cool. Ugh. I can't get enough of Order 66 stuff. It's just so cool every time, right? Sad but cool is the way I kind of think about it. Mm-hmm. And we see 3 Jedi fighting off clones from the 501st, and again, the details here are appreciated. I don't think they would ever make this mistake, but we have the clone armor painted blue. As we know, that Anakin's 501st wears blue armor, right?
Right. Yeah.
And we see these 3 Jedi. They had kind of using different Jedi lightsaber styles. There is one thing that's really interesting is there's an emblem or a sigil on the wall next to them or on a door. At first, that I saw a tweet that says that was Barriss Offee's crest.
Oh, okay.
On the door next to them. Huh. I went to go look this up further. The Wikipedia article that referenced that was taken down.
Oh, okay.
And then it just said unknown crest. And then I followed that, and that was also missing. So to me, it means that there's maybe something to it, but it's not. There's not enough there. Obviously, the folks at Wikipedia didn't think there was enough there to keep that up as an article.
I see.
So
okay. Yeah.
I thought that's interesting. Make of that what you want. Barriss Offee is an interesting character because obviously we don't know her fate. She has a connection to Ahsoka, and she wouldn't have been at the Jedi Temple at the time of
No, she wouldn't have, because she's well beyond exiled at that point.
Well, would she have been exiled or would she be in prison? She might have been in Jedi prison.
Oh, right, yeah, because she was caught. Yeah, she was caught at that point, or I can't
It's
remember. Did
she
she
gets
stay?
taken into custody, and
Yeah,
we don't know what
okay,
happens to her.
right.
Right.
But also, why would she have her own crest when she was just a Padawan?
Well, it might be from her. Well, the individual Jedi don't have their own crest. That's not like
Yeah,
a
that's
normal
kind of I
Jedi
was like,
thing.
what? Yeah,
But
that's kind of what I was like. What are you talking about?
her species has like a lot of tradition, right? Like only
Ah,
her
I
species is allowed to
see.
train other Jedi of that same species and stuff.
Oh, interesting.
So
Okay.
there's some. I can't remember the name of her species off the top of
Oh,
my
yeah, I
head.
can't remember
Let's
either.
see, Barris Offie species. It is Marillion.
Marillion? Okay.
Anyway, so her Luminara Unduli was her Jedi master, right?
Yes.
Also Marillion. And so they might have like that might be more of like a family tradition thing. It's like a slightly different. They kind of are like the exception to the rule in terms of like attachment and stuff like that for the Jedi. Like they're allowed to know a lot more stuff about their culture.
Right.
So I think that's interesting. It's probably nothing, but it is just a kind of maybe it's in the same hallway that Ahsoka's bedroom was, because wasn't it like right next to each other? Didn't they have like rooms right next to each other? Anyway,
I'm not too sure. Yeah.
it doesn't matter. The point is the clones looked better than we've ever seen them.
Yeah, they looked incredible.
I I paused over and over and over and over and over again. Like every time there was a shot of the clones, I paused. There's a like really close up shot of one of their helmets. I think they are CG, but I don't know for sure. That's how good I think they look.
Yeah,
they kind of look real, like people wearing armor, quote unquote. But then the close-ups, sometimes there's elements like their gloves, like the black, like a bodysuit underneath, kind of looks a little maybe CG. It's hard to tell, but what I'm saying is they look badass.
Yeah, they look so good.
We had the clones first appeared in obviously Attack of the Clones. Didn't look that great in that movie. Then they looked way better in Revenge of the Sith. We didn't see them very much, but when we did, they looked way better, right?
Yeah.
Then we got clones in Battlefront 2, and they looked really, really good. That was the best we'd ever seen clones look up until now, where we have this new live action version, and they just look stellar. Like for all I know, they used the Bad Company 2 assets and just like reshaded them for live action or whatever, but they look so good. I love clone troopers. I love their armor. I've been thinking about like, can I justify spending over $1,000 to like get clone trooper armor
I
made?
want to do the same. Maybe not necessarily clone trooper armor, but Mandalorian armor. Yeah, so cool.
Yeah, it is super cool. There's like a website that makes like custom built helmets. There's several $100s, but I'm looking at like every clone. They have like every clone and every Mando. Like it's so cool. But yeah, like $450, $500.
Yeah,
hard to justify. But anywho, there's this different elements. This flashback, the flashback effects, like with the kind of like faded out sides, edges.
Yeah,
similar to the vision that Anakin had when he was seeing his mother die.
Yeah, and seeing Padme.
Yeah. So I think they're using that kind of similar effect, this kind of like in the mind effect. We see Grogu reacting to these three Jedi getting killed. We don't know who they are, of course, these Jedi. And we don't know. Like we just see a really close up on his face. We kind of see the like reflection in his eyes, but we don't know how he escapes, because after those Jedi are killed, we see the clones approaching him. But we don't know anything like what happened after that. So there's still an ongoing mystery. I really appreciate the show also saying, "Hey, I know you guys all want to know how he escaped the temple." Right?
Right, yeah.
So they're like starting to plant those seeds. I appreciate that. That's super cool.
Show us.
Yeah. So what did you make of this flashback? What did you think of it?
Oh, it was so good. And I mean, obviously, I'm kind of right with you there. Like, I love seeing these little bits and pieces of Order 66 from all the different point of views. So I'm never upset when I get another viewpoint of it. So, because Grogu is this is probably like 20 years ago at this point, a little over 20 years at this point. So, yeah, so he's even at that point, maybe he's only been alive in baby years for like 25, 30 years at this point too. So he's even younger, which is kind of interesting too. But yeah, I mean, obviously, it just opens up a little bit more questions about like, okay, like we just keep wanting more. It's so hard to not
Right.
to not want more. But I thought they did it like extremely well done. It's it they did it very well, and it just makes me, I don't know, want to learn more and see more about it. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I same. And like, here's the one thing: the one missed opportunity. No new clone dialogue. You already have Tamora Morrison here. Just have him record some new dialogue.
There was
We
a
didn't get
little
any
bit
of
of
that.
dialogue.
There's
really
clones
hear it.
screaming, and that you can't hear it. That's all it says in the subtitles. So.
Oh, really? Because
Yeah.
I feel like when I was watching, they were like move along or something, and they have a little bit of dialogue, but it's nothing really. It's just
You
like
can't hear it either.
no, you can't really hear it. It's just kind of like a keep moving or keep going kind of thing.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just would have liked to see more. I just want more clones. That's ultimately.
Yeah, that's fair.
And the thing is, it's like we're gonna have this Order 66 flashback. We have clone troopers in this episode, but we're not gonna even mention or think about the fact that Boba Fett is a clone. The show does not spend any time thinking or interrogating that idea.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a missed opportunity, but we'll see. Maybe that we'll still get that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we cut back from the flashback. Luke tells Grogu that the galaxy is a dangerous place, and I'll teach you to protect yourself.
Right.
I guess because he understands that really that all Grogu's seen has basically been violence his entire life. So we cut to Mando and Ahsoka. Mando wakes up from a nap to find Ahsoka is there. I'm surprised. We're all surprised. He's surprised, right? He's like, "What are you doing here?" And she says she's a friend of the family.
I know.
Isn't that nice? Isn't that nice?
So sweet.
Yeah, it is really sweet.
So many layers to it.
Every line, I feel like there's, again, another missed opportunity. Just not enough dialogue between Ahsoka and Luke.
Yeah, that's true.
There's been so much debate online about like, oh, how cool would it be if Ahsoka and Luke met up? Like she'd have all these stories to tell about his dad, and like they'd have all the like interesting, like really, and ultimately, I think you get the impression that Ahsoka would probably be a more highly trained Jedi than even Luke would be at this point, right? But she refers to him as Master Skywalker, right, or Master Luke, right?
That's because she's not a Jedi. She never became a master.
Right. Yeah, but like she still knows more. You know what I mean?
No,
she spent most of her life
course.
training at the Jedi at the temple on Coruscant,
I think there are still like obviously levels of strength within the Force though, and I think Luke is probably a stronger Force user. I don't know, but
that might be true. What I find confusing is like this idea of like someone is like really strong, like the midichlorian stuff. They don't really talk about it, like, oh, if you have more midichlorians, then that means you're stronger with the Force. But like, what does that mean? It's not really clear. Like if you just train more, if you as a Force user just train more, are you able to tap into more abilities, or are you capped out once you're like, oh, you're not powerful enough for this? Like I don't know how that. It's not clear how that works, but
yeah, that's true. But
it's best not to think about it because it gets too confusing.
Yeah, it's too convoluted.
Yeah. So she says she's a friend of family. He's surprised to see her mostly because she had last told him that she wouldn't train Grogu, right?
Right.
And she's like, well, I'm not. Master Luke is. He tells her that, that he's there to see the kid. She's like, of course I know that.
Yeah.
And that's why, and then she's like, that's why R2 brought you to me instead. Right. Which I think is like a really, and that's why I said brought you to me, which I think is interesting instead of the other way around where it brought, called me to come to you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's fair.
Kind of where I felt like that. So, and then she like rubs his head and R2 does the little dance. And it's like you just get these quick flashbacks of her and as a young Padawan and R2, doing their adventures together. And you're like, man, they have so much history. That's really nice. Yeah. And she tells him about how the ants are building a school and Grogu's going to be the first student. And she's kind of like really kind of proud of that, which I think is really interesting considering she didn't want to train him. She didn't feel like she should. And he tells her that, listen, I want to see the kid, right?
Yeah.
R2 gives a little burp sound effect. So kind of like, I guess, what is R2 trying to say here? Like, I don't think you should. Like, that's a bad idea. That kind of thing.
I think it's probably more like I don't know. Like Master Luke's not going to like that. Like, I think it's more of a
Right.
Definitely.
That's a good call.
And yeah, honestly, when it comes to the whole like Ahsoka training Grogu thing, I think because I believe the only reason she says she doesn't want to is because he had such a strong attachment. And I think that immediately kind of freaked her out because of the whole Anakin thing. So I think she was just too scared. So she thought like, no, like this is beyond, like he's too attached to you already. I've seen what that can do.
There's so much conversation in this episode around attachment.
Yeah.
I find it really interesting.
They have that same amount of like conversation in Mandalorian about Grogu's attachment to Mando and how to deal with that. So, and that's why she wanted him to take him to Luke in the first place, because she's like, Luke can handle this. She's like, I think she was just too like, no, I've seen what happens and I can't do that again. So,
well, she doesn't tell him to take him to Luke.
Doesn't
right?
she? Doesn't she say? Oh no, doesn't she say like we can find someone? Oh no, I guess later. Doesn't she come back later?
She gives them. I think she gives them the hint about going to that like beacon thing. If there's any other Jedi,
Sorry,
maybe they can train them, right? So she goes. They go to that beacon with the blue butterflies.
Right. I think she was just too scared. Like it's not that.
Yeah, and she is like capable. Understandably, right?
Yeah, I think it was just more came from like a bit of fear and a bit of from what she's seen in the past, and she's like, I can't do that again. So
what I find fascinating though is how much conversation there is with Luke and Grogu about attachment. Because so there's two schools of thought on this, in my opinion. Okay, there's the opinion that Luke is testing Grogu right at the end. He's saying like, oh, you need to choose. It's one or the other, because I think his exact words were. I'll scroll to the end of my notes here. He says, "If you choose the armor, you will return to the Mandalorian, but you will be forsaking the way of the Jedi." Right? So what makes this is what this makes me think, okay? It makes me think that Luke is still very much ingrained in the old way of thinking about the Jedi arts, right? The way that the Jedi from the old, the old Republic, not the old Republic, but the Galactic Republic, the
area,
previous Republic, the Mace Windus of the world, the way that they thought about attachment, right?
Right.
And the way Obi-Wan thinks about attachment, right? And to Ahsoka, that led to, Anakin's attachment to Padme is what led to his downfall, right?
Yes, yeah.
And so, maybe they've had that conversation. Maybe Ahsoka's had that conversation with Luke, right?
Right.
He was married. He wasn't supposed to be. This caused him to be able to be exploited, for the wrong ends, right? So maybe now Luke feels that same way, right? And then eventually, right, when we catch up to Luke again, because this is the furthest along we've ever seen Luke, that when we catch up to Luke again in The Last Jedi, he's completely lost faith in those Jedi teachings, right?
Well, yeah, he's like closed himself off to the Force at that point too.
Well, no, but he also like he keeps the Jedi texts, but Yoda burns them, or quote unquote.
Right.
He thinks he burns them, right? The ancient Jedi texts, page turners, they were not, right? And so he at that time, like he has that conversation with Rey, and he's talking about how she, the Jedi's legacy is failure. Right, and that it's hubris, right, and all this stuff, and that it's this connection to the Force and yada yada yada, right? I think that there's a medium space that I think Luke finally understands later on, that you can have connection, right?
Absolutely.
The gray Jedi idea, I think is not really, but I don't think that's even what it is. I think you can be a quote unquote pure Jedi and have attachment, I think, as long as it's the right kind. Strong friends. Luke has strong friends.
I was just gonna say, I was like, Luke has attachments too. Like he was obviously very attached to Obi-Wan when Obi-Wan dies, and I know he's like he's not Jedi trained or anything.
And
at
his
that
sister,
point, really. But
and his friend Han and Chewie and R2.
Yeah, it's like all of them. So it's like he does have these attachments, but it's more about kind of, you can have attachments, but you got to learn how that they can't influence your decisions. They can't, change the way you do things or cause you to do harm, right? So So I'm wondering if this is the second school of thought, is that he's aware of that and is really just trying to see how Grogu will react. Like he's going to get both the lightsaber and the I think
armor,
there's room for both too, but
But
we'll see.
It is interesting to say to you that's like, how hypocritical of him if he's like, no, if you choose to go with Mando, you give up being a Jedi, right? Meanwhile, he's got all like he has these own attachments of his own. So I think that's like, and he tries to, I think, justify it by saying, oh, a short time for you is a long time for someone else, right? A lifetime for someone else, which to me actually completely is the opposite of, I think, the message he's trying to send. Because if it is just a short time for you, why can't you have this? Like, why can't you spend time with these people who, for them, it is a long time and it's meaningful, right?
Well, exactly, yeah.
And then you still have all this time available to you to learn to be a Jedi.
Hundreds of years.
Yeah, so I feel like that's I find that interesting. I don't know if the show is going to explore that, but I think there's this idea that Luke may feel like he needs to teach this lesson in a very traditional Jedi way, but is actually going to learn that that's a mistake, and that's how it's part of the reason he turns to this path where we find him in The Last Jedi. It might, you know what I'm saying? That might be the case. Mm-hmm. A lot of the stuff that The Mandalorian is doing is trying to justify the sequel trilogy in a lot of ways that the Clone Wars did a lot of work to try to fix the prequel trilogy, right? People, I know that a lot of people want to throw away the sequels. The sequels aren't very good. I understand that. Last Jedi being the obvious exception to that, which is great. But I think there's just so much fascinating stuff here with like how Luke is approaching this. Oh, fascinating stuff. Love it. Anyway, big sidetrack.
Yeah.
So where were we? Oh yeah. Back on track. We're with Mando and Ahsoka. Oh man, we still have so much to cover. And so they walk through the bamboo, and she tells him that his attachment to him will be hard to let go. Mando's response is that because he was, quote, a Mandalorian foundling in his care, unquote, that he just wants to make sure he's safe, which is, okay, fair enough.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Sure. And then, of course, there's this line from Ahsoka that has a little bit of melancholy to it, which is, there's no place in the galaxy that is more safe than here with Luke, right?
Right.
Which, of course, we know that his Jedi temple's burned and that all of his students are killed. So there's a little bit of, that's kind of sad, but that's still a long ways away. But it does color it a little bit. It's hard to be as excited for her here, knowing what happens. Mando questions why she's fine with Luke training Grogu when she said she wouldn't do it herself, and she thinks about it. But and by the way, I love her performance here because she's she takes these moments to be like, to think about what she's gonna say before she says it. It's very thoughtful, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, same.
So she says, it was his choice, right? That's why, like, it's not. I don't control the wants of others. That's what she says.
Yeah.
And so Mando's like, well, okay, well, then it's my choice to go see him. She said, okay, that's what you want.
Yeah.
And she kind of she points, and we see Mando see Luke and Grogu on the hill, and he's like, okay, great, I'll see you later. And he's like, starts walking over. I thought that was such a funny moment. He's like, okay, yeah, great, perfect, thanks for showing me the way.
Okay, sweet, yeah.
Yeah. And Ahsoka stops him by asking him if he's doing it for himself or for Grogu, which I think is such a it's so
such a good way.
It just I think it's just the perfect question here. Right?
It is, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And he has to think about it for a second, right? And she's like, I just have this gift. I want to give it to him, right? He's trying to explain himself, and she's like, why? So he'll remember you? Which I think is a kind of cruel, a little bit mean on her part. But I understand where she's coming from.
Yeah.
And then Mando's response was like, no, it's his right as a foundling to have this, right? Which I think is such a cool answer because, right, this is this clash between ideologies, right?
Ideologies, yeah, exactly.
This line where he's before, it's like, that's the opposite of our creed, right?
Yeah.
Where we believe in togetherness and strength in our connections, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which, again, this is really cool way of kind of interrogating the failings of the Jedi, but I don't think the show's there yet. No. So he's like, whatever, foundling, and she's like, well, maybe he's a Padawan now. Which, by the way, gotta love hearing the word Padawan used.
I love that.
So, yeah, really good stuff. Good
I
stuff.
was waiting for her to say that because he said the foundling thing twice, and she's like,
Right.
foundling. And she's like, well, maybe he's a Padawan now. Like, it's not like he's not really a foundling anymore.
Right. And either way, his armor will protect him, right? That's kind of his excuse. Like, just let me give him the gift.
Yeah.
Mando looks up to them again and pauses. Ahsoka offers to deliver the gift for him. And he's like, and the way he reads this line, Pedro Pascal, he's like, I came all this way.
I know.
He's right here.
You could just see his heart breaking.
Yeah, it's so it gave me goosebumps, and I was like, that's such good writing. I think that this is kind of like come back to us saying before, like this is where Dave Filoni shines, like is in these little moments. I think.
Yeah, there's so much emotion in those, like that short.
I know, but I came all this way.
Yeah, it's right there.
Ahsoka tells him that Grogu misses him a great deal, explaining that if Grogu sees him, that it'll be harder for him in the long run. Right?
Yeah.
Mando thinks about it, and he agrees, giving the gift to Ahsoka, and then walks away. Great scene. Such a great scene.
So good.
Right? Then we cut to Luke and Grogu training. We're back with Grogu, and you see a shot from his perspective as Mando's ship takes off. We see Grogu's little hand reach out. He looks sad. Again, just carrying on. Like, really plucks on the heartstrings.
Yeah.
We see that he's in a backpack being carried around by Luke, and I'm like, that is great. Super funny stuff.
Just like Dagobah.
Yeah, it is. Luke wants to continue his training. This time, it's a jumping lesson. Grogu tries it first, but it's this like littlest little hop you've ever seen.
It's so cute.
Yeah, it is.
It's
like
a little baby hop.
And Luke is like, "That's all you got, really?" You know?
Yeah, he's just mocking him.
And it's just funny to me is like,
no,
we don't know how much time, like, if Luke did train with Yoda again after, between Empire and Return of the Jedi. We don't know, but there's this idea that like I feel like Luke is like expecting him to like hop around like Yoda, like we saw Yoda do against Palpatine or Dooku,
Right. Yeah.
And so he's like just does this little hop. He's like, really, that's all you got? Like, man, you're 800 years younger than than he was when I saw him.
I know what your species can do.
Right. Yeah.
I've seen it.
So he tells him you're trying too hard, and then as soon as he said that, I was like, he's gonna say something about don't try or whatever, do or do not.
Yeah.
Don't try. And so he does. He said, "Don't try, do." And I was like, "Oh, cool, callback." Yeah. Right. Where again, he kind of understands the lesson here, right? And he's taking a little bit deeper. And Grogu doesn't seem to think he can do it. He kind of looks again disappointed in himself. So Luke decides that they should go on a little kind of a little adventure. So he puts him in the backpack, and they go for a little run. It's the funniest things. It's just like Dagobah. But again, it's like it's like poetry. It rhymes, right?
He even does the front flip.
He does the little flip. The flip is the funniest part, by the way, because it looks dumb. It looks stupid looking, and it always has looked stupid looking to me. But it's like because he does a flip and he's like 2 centimeters off the ground. It's like always like it's so weird.
You had to. It's such a good callback. It's like
so he's got the little backpack and he's doing the little flip, and they're going for this run. And he's jumping across little things. And he jumps off over this little like water beast thing. It's all very charming. It's very good. And so they climb up the bamboo, and so they can get a good view of the valley. And then they have this little conversation, and I think this is kind of the heart of the training, where he's basically trying to get to him and say, look at the wide world exists in balance, right? Everything in balance, right? And feel the force all around you. You can hear the breeze, right? And then we hear the force theme, and I'm always a sucker for the force theme.
Me too.
Anytime you have Luke gazing out on something, I feel like you need to play it. So, and then he says, through the force, you will find balance as well, which is, this is just such a good. I didn't think we'd spend this much time watching Luke train Grogu. Let's just put it that way.
No, but I loved every second of it.
But it's all super good. I think we've done a lot of talking about a lot of the kind of the ideas behind it already. But
right.
Back to training. Luke is now having Grogu stand on one leg. We're doing kind of like a montage here.
So cute.
We're doing that kind of like again echoing Yoda's training on Dagobah. This kind of this reversal of the roles here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Grogu seems to be getting the hang of it, though. He's kind of like, oh, okay, I get it. And as Grogu practices his balance, Luke practices with his lightsaber, which I felt like a little bit of like it feels a little like, why? There's no need for this. It's cool to look at, but it's like it seems like a weird. Let's just throw this in here. Everyone wants to see him use his lightsaber, so okay.
Yeah.
I was really hoping he'd cut through a bamboo shoot. You know?
Yeah, me too. Actually,
just to do something like let me see you do something cool, but he doesn't. He doesn't do that. So anyway, the next lesson is with the training remote, right?
Yeah.
So we're gonna test his reflexes, and I love how he like puts it on the ground and he's like playing with it like it's a ball.
Like he kicks it,
yeah. Yeah. He's like, no, that's not how that works. Yeah. So Luke turns it on, and just like how he was the first time he used the training remote, he gets shot by the little blaster.
Yeah, but immediately I was like, you just shot a baby, first of all.
Yeah, but he knew it wasn't going to hurt him.
No, I know, but those blasts are probably like way more forceful for
on a little baby.
On a little baby than it is on
It's
Luke
a 50-year-old man.
Boy.
Yeah, I guess.
But I was just like, you just shot the baby.
You just shot that baby.
How dare you? And he kind of makes that little like yelp and like jumps back.
Yeah.
Like,
well, I think he gets blasted back, which is I think is it's very funny.
How dare you?
How dare you? Anyway, so he gets shot the first time, and then I love how he's like, get back up, always get back up. I thought the line reading was a bit weird. I know Mark Hamill's doing the voice here for this. They're like, if we're gonna do Luke, Mark Hamill has to do the voice, but his voice is much different than it was 35 years ago.
Yeah, I'm assuming they're kind of like adjusting it to
which is why it sounds weird sometimes.
Yeah.
And that's fine. Every once in a while it sounds a little weird. It just comes with the territory. Like, if we're gonna do all this work, we're gonna de-age him. We're gonna use a body double, and we're gonna do We're gonna do this voice modulation. It's just there's gonna be moments that aren't gonna be quite right. They're gonna start work. They're gonna work on it, and sure, it's gonna get better and better and better, right? But as it stands now, it's pretty close. But there's just odd. I just thought that one was interesting. It also reminded me of the Batman Begins. I don't know if you remember Batman Begins.
Those are really cheesy Batman movies.
No, that's the first one with Christian Bale.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, no, it's better than that, right? But it's funny in that movie. There's a line where Bruce falls into the well where the giant bat is or whatever,
right?
And Alfred is like, "Why do we fall, Bruce? Right? So we can learn to pick ourselves up." That's the line from that. Why do we fall, Bruce? Right? And that's Luke basically just teaching Grogu. Why do we fall, Grogu? So we can get back up. Right?
Yeah, fair enough.
On the next try, Grogu jumps out of the way. He even does a little flip himself.
Yeah, he does his little flips.
I love how it goes. Like, he goes right from not being able to jump at all to being able to jump do a flip. So I think
that's how strong he is. He's learning.
That's how strong he is.
That's why they had to go on that running flipping montage.
Right. So he knew how to flip.
To teach him.
Yeah. So and then this cuts we cut again, and we see that he's getting even better. Right. He's jumping around rocks, avoiding the training remote's little shots. Right. But then he gets annoyed, and he uses the force to like break the little ball.
Crush it.
Yeah. And then Luke looks at him and says, "Good."
I know. I was kind of thinking. I was like, "Oh, is he gonna get scolded? Like,
Isn't
hey,
that
you're
weird?
not supposed to use your like anger for that." But it was just kind of like, yeah. But I mean, we've seen Luke force choke guys, so
that's true. That's true. I just thought it was odd. I just think it's like maybe it felt like maybe he was a little distracted with Ahsoka, but it's just it's. I thought that was an odd choice. I was like, okay, good, interesting.
Yeah.
And maybe this is all a part of the story they're trying to tell, but I thought that was interesting. Ahsoka arrives to see this. She seems impressed as well. I'm like, wow, okay, even she's impressed. Luke feels like he's. They have a kind of a brief conversation. Luke feels like he's doing less training and really only helping Grogu remember things he already knew. And so Ahsoka's comment to that is sometimes the student guides the master, right? Which is maybe an allusion to how she, her and Ahsoka or her and Anakin kind of work together. But either way, it's a good line.
Yeah.
Luke acknowledges that Mando, was there. Ahsoka reminds him that Mando and Grogu share a strong bond. Mm-hmm. She also tells him that Mando had brought a gift. And instead of giving it to Grogu, she gives it to Luke.
Yeah.
So the gift just keeps getting passed around.
I know.
And then Luke looks back at Grogu. Yeah. So go ahead. No,
I was gonna say. I mean, it makes sense. Like, if you're Ahsoka, you're not just gonna be like, "Oh, hey, Grogu, here's a present," and like not talk to his master about it.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
But yeah, I get it, man. It was just like we're all just kind of sitting there being like, "Hey, just give him the chainmail."
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Right. Because that's how I felt.
Oh, me too.
And Luke is like, sometimes I wonder if his heart is in it. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then Ahsoka says this line that everyone loves, right? So she says, like, so much like your father, she says.
Yeah.
And I don't really. What the hell does she mean by that? Because like what is she talking about? How did you interpret it anyway?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's like a little bit of like because she had to deal with so much of like Anakin's sort of not frustrations.
Well, yeah, his kind of way he questioned the council.
His questioning and his like, he kind of questions Obi-Wan sometimes and kind of doing things his own ways. So maybe it's a little bit of that, like her just being kind of like, oh yeah, there it is.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know.
His curious nature. Right.
Right. Yeah.
Or if like, hey, maybe if his heart's not in it, maybe it's something to do with like the training. Like maybe the training itself is not endearing itself to him.
Right, yeah. Like it's almost like things aren't moving like fast enough for him, right?
Yeah. So Luke wonders what should I do with him? And Ahsoka's tip here is to trust your instincts.
Yeah.
She's got all this years of knowledge for being taught by the likes of Yoda and Obi-Wan and Anakin, and all she's got for him is trust your instincts. And Ahsoka leaves, and Luke is like, I'm never going to see you again. And I thought that was also strange. Like, it seemed to me, because at that point, up until then, I assumed that she had already been on the planet and that they were working together, right, in some fashion, right?
Yeah.
And she basically says, perhaps, and leaves with a "May the Force be with you," which of course is nice that they would have that little exchange. But she's, I guess, off to finish her quest to find Thrawn.
Well, yeah, and she's kind of got her own, her own kind of spin-off. I
feel like she would have got over that, a lot of that stuff by then. Like once the Jedi are all killed, and you're kind of the one of the few remaining pupils of that teaching.
Yeah.
And you have the son of your former Jedi teacher there with you. I feel like you might take a different tact. Personally, I feel like there'll be a little bit more growth there. Like, is she still really mad at the Jedi Council's been dead for 30 years?
Well, I don't think it. Yeah, I just think she kind of has her own like things that she's wanting to do. Like she kind of wants to find Thrawn to like probably find Ezra. I don't think it's as much about finding Thrawn as I think it's about kind of trying to find Ezra or at least figure out what happened to him, because that was something that she kind of promised like Hera and Sabine and that she was going to do. So
or presumably based on that one nod from the end of Rebels.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much.
I wonder when does she already have her giant staff at this point? Like when does she get that big Gandalf the White staff? Anyway. It's unclear.
Yeah.
We don't know exactly when that moment takes place. Sometime after Return of the Jedi. That's all we know. So she's off to continue her quest to find Thrawn, presumably. What did you make of this kind of this training stuff? Everything with Luke and Ahsoka.
Oh, I adored it.
What's your? It's great.
I loved it, and I just feel like there's so much history there with like especially with like Luke now training Grogu. We get the kind of the flashbacks of Yoda training Luke and the interactions between Luke and Ahsoka. Just bring up everything like yeah, it's just crazy. Like Ahsoka basically spent most of her adolescent life with Anakin, like Luke's father. So it's just so cool to be able to see all these characters interacting with each other. And yeah, and then just in the back of my mind, I'm like, man, there's so much history on this one planet right now. Like you've got R2 and Ahsoka and Luke all in one spot. Like it's crazy. But no, I really enjoyed this whole montage and getting to see this little bit of training that Grogu's going through. I thought it was very cute when it needed to be and serious when it needed to be. And yeah, I have no complaints about it.
Yeah. I despite my qualms with the the nature of this episode being what it is, right? Taking it for on its own face. This stuff is super cool to see. Yeah. It really starts blending all these different eras together in a really interesting way. It's great stuff. So with that done, we cut back to Tatooine, and back with Mando as he arrives at Jabba's palace and he parks in the hangar. There's this really cool shot of Mando inside the cockpit of the N1 as he's like coming in space, looking up at him. They kind of use that camera angle a couple times, but it looks really cool when he's in space.
Yeah, it does.
So he's greeted by Gamorrean guard, but Mando says he's there at the request of Fennec Shand. We cut to a meeting with Boba's gang being run by Fennec because, of course, Boba Fett doesn't talk in this episode. She's discussing the situation in Mos Espa, recounting a lot of the stuff we already know. The Pikes have been gathering soldiers for weeks, and we learned that Mok Shaiz has left the planet, which is their kind of sign, their hint that things are going to start kind of heating up.
Right, yeah.
Fennec...
I love how that guy interrupts and he's like, it was a scheduled vacation, actually.
yeah.
It's like, shut up, you dirty politician.
Well, I just think that David Pasquizzi is just such a funny actor.
Yeah, he does a really good job with that character. I really enjoy him.
Yeah. So Fennec introduces Mando, and he says, because of him and Chrysanthemum, we have enough experienced muscle to act as enforcers, but we lack the numbers to cover our territory if an all-out war comes. We need foot soldiers. So Mando believes he can help with this and leaves. We cut away, and again, just reminding everyone that Boba never speaks here, but he does nod really cool to Mando.
Yeah, we get a good cool guy nod. So
yeah, right.
Yeah, I saw a tweet where it was like, it was really nice of Boba Fett to cameo in his own show.
Yeah, that's essentially.
Like, oh God.
Yeah. So cut to a shot of a crate dragon skull.
I love this.
It's so cool.
I love this so much. I think Jawas are the funniest things. If and when I have children, their first Halloween, I'm dressing them up as Jawas. Because I think they're so funny. I love them.
I think they're really adorable in the sense that, like, they have, like, listen, if you just, like, operate on their level, they're not going to mess with you, right? Yeah. You know? They're just trying to go out there, just living their life. They just want to live in their little sand crawlers, and which, you know, the sand crawlers are big, but what I like about when we saw the more detailed sand crawler stuff in Mando season 1, that it's, like, still designed by and built for Jawas, so it's like everything's smaller.
Everything's smaller, yeah. They have like tiny little windows and doors.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you got this crate dragon skull, and it's like, of course, we knew the crate dragon was huge. It was already big, but like the skull on top of the sandcrawler just gives it so much more perspective. I think and they have it like basically like attached to the top
like
as if
mounted.
It's like
and like a hood ornament.
Yeah, like a hood ornament. That's what I thought too. And so Mando's flying by. It's kind of a weird scene because it's like, what's the point of this even being in here? But whatever.
Yeah, I think it's just to see a crate dragon skull and
right. Mando's flying by in his N1. They're all cheering, I guess, either because they recognize the ship that they helped build, or
that's what I assume.
Like Mando because they helped kill the crate dragon. They're just getting along. They're friends now.
Yeah.
Right. So. Anyway, there's some really cool shots of the ship. The N1 looks really cool here and all that stuff. The Jawas cheers, they fly by. Mando lands in Mos Pelgo, but one of the deputies there tells him that he needs to park somewhere else. I love this little exchange. Yo, if you're going to park your ship, you got to park it over there.
Park it on the flatlands. It's like, it's a desert. Why does he matter where he parks his ship on that piece of sand or that piece of sand over there?
Classic parking cop power trip. You know?
Yes, it's just such a petty power move. Yeah,
it is really petty, and that's why I think it's so funny.
Classic deputy move.
Yeah, it is. The deputies are always doing dumb shit, right?
Throwing their weight around.
Hard to get good help around here these days, right?
Yeah.
And so he's like, I'm here to see Cobb Vanth, and he's like, I told you to park your ship. He's like, yeah, I heard you.
Yeah.
And it looks like they're about to like fight, and then the way that they shot this is kind of funny because the next shot it cuts back to the deputy and Cobb Vanth appears from nowhere. He literally appears from behind him, and he like eases the tension. He's like, hey, he's still new, still a bit jumpy, which is foreshadowing what comes later, actually.
Right. Cool. Yeah.
And then he's like, wait, is that an Abu starfighter? And he's like, just. And then what I love about this, again, talk about like just these cool dude moments where they're just, they're staring at the ship and like having a conversation, but they're not looking at each other, just looking at the ship. They're just kind of like taking it in. It's kind of like two guys looking at a cool car.
I love that. Or it's like dads watching another guy like do a job in the yard.
Yeah,
there's just a bunch of dads standing around with their like hands on their hips.
Yep, or like arms crossed or whatever.
Yeah.
And they have like a little brief catch up, and they're like, "Hey, I haven't seen you since your armor was gone." He's like, "How are you doing?" He's like, "More careful," which I think is a really cool line.
Right. Yeah.
He's like, "Where's the little guy?" Which everyone asks about. He's like, "Oh, he's back with his own kind." And he's like, "I guess we both lost something we were fond of." Which So, cut to inside the bar, which is now adorned with the rib cage of the crate dragon.
Okay, I was gonna ask if that was there the first time because I noticed that. And I was like, is that new? Did I just not notice the whole massive rib cage?
Unclear how they got it inside the building, but
piece by piece. It's like when you build a whale. It's like when you build a whale inside a museum.
Oh, right. You take all the pieces apart and then rebuild it inside. Yeah, that makes sense.
Come on.
Yeah.
You don't just put a whole T-Rex in a museum. Like,
you think everyone's got little pieces in there? Like everyone in Freetown's got little different pieces of the crate dragon. They're all sharing it in different ways.
Yeah.
So they're like, "Hey, can I buy you a drink?" And so cut to inside the bar. We see the crate dragon, but there's a little time jump has happened because they do the thing where we don't need to explain the stuff we already know, which I appreciate.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Mando's already told him about the situation with Boba and the Pikes. Cobb does not think that this has anything to do with him in the town. He's like, why does that matter to us? Mando offers them good money. He believes they're good fighters. He's like, we need your help. I think there's money in it for you guys, and your people are. I've fought with them. They're good people.
Mm-hmm.
Cobb argues that the people of the town are done with fighting now that the dragon is dead. Right. Mando believes that they can't separate themselves from what's going on in Mos Espa, right? He's like, listen, it's all the same planet, right? It's like hey, listen, it's all in the same town, right? If they let the Pikes take over, next thing you know, they're running spice through Freetown, and you're right back at square one, right?
Exactly, yeah.
At least that's what Mando's arguing, right? And Cobb is like, well, as long as I'm here, that's not going to be a problem. Well, we see how that turns out.
Yeah.
Apparently the town has been renamed Freetown. We just learned this now. This is really cool because it's actually a reference, or a full circle reference, I guess, to the Aftermath books, which are really good books. Actually, I've listened to them all as audiobooks, and so there's like these interludes where there's these characters you don't know who they are at the time, but they're telling the story of how Cobb Vanth gets the armor from the Jawas and kind of like helps free the town, and then it's known as Freetown. So that kind of stuff is told in kind of a way in that show. I think which is pretty cool.
Okay.
So anyway, that's neither here nor there. And the bartender, which by the way I still appreciate, the bartender's also from Deadwood. He played also a bartender in that show. I know we talked about that. Mando,
I'm assuming he's not a Weequay in.
No, he's not a Weequay, but he is a bartender in that show, and he does interact like they have a very similar relationship in that show. And then he's like, the town wants no part of it. That's a city folk fight. That's a city folk fight is such fun. It's so funny because it's like, what are you talking about? You live like 20 minutes outside the city, and it's like saying this is a very hyper local reference, but that's like saying you live outside Brandon and you're like, I'm not worried about the Brandon stuff. That's a city folk problem. You're like, give me a break.
Well, yeah. You're in like the rural outskirts outside the city, and you're like, no, it's a city problem.
Yeah, okay, whatever you say. And I really like this exchange because it's classic Western stuff. It's kind of talking around the point sometimes without saying it specifically, right? And he says, he's like, listen, I fought side by side with the people of Freetown. They're skilled fighters, and I didn't think you're the type to back down, from bullies, right? Which is that one line that he needed to use to kind of get under his skin a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the line from Cobb is so cool, where he says, "See, that's what I like about you, Mando. That big smile of yours lets you get away with anything. And then it just cuts to his stupid face with his helmet.
Stupid face.
Well, it's like he doesn't have. You can't see his smile. I just think that's such a good line.
Yeah,
it's
such a
so
good
fun.
little jab.
Yeah. And he's like, listen, there's no easy way. And like another great line again from Mando this time. There's no easy way to ask for a favor.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
This is I'm coming to you.
So true.
We're square. Right. I need a favor. Right?
Yeah.
And it is. Yeah. It's one of those things. Like it's just one of those universal truths, but kind of nice when it's said out loud like that.
Yeah.
Cobb promises to see what he can do, which I think is all that he asks. Right. By the way, anytime someone says, "I'll see what I can do," it usually means they're going to do the thing that they're going to say.
Yeah, it usually means like a yes.
It's shorthand for I'll help you out.
Mm-hmm.
So, where was I? So he says, "I'll see what I can do." Mando takes off in his ship, and Cobb tells the bartender to gather the people of fighting age to come down for a meeting. Right? Okay, interesting. And then things get really interesting. Because we get this really cool standoff. So as Cobb is thinking about how he's going to address the town, we get a shot of a wind vane. Again, this is basically just turns into a pure Western. And there's this, it cuts then to a single stranger walking in from out of the desert. You can't really, it's obscured by
I leapt out of my seat. I was
laying
down.
Your seat.
I was laying down and I'm just kind of watching. And as soon as I saw that silhouette, I like jumped up and I was like, is that? And then I just didn't say anything. So I was just waiting for it to get a little bit clearer. Because I knew it's the second from the silhouette. Because I was kind of like, no fucking
no one else wears that
way.
hat and duster. Like
that's the thing. I was just like, okay, it's already Westerny. You see the duster, you see the hat, like the skinny silhouette. And I was like, holy shit, this is so cool. I was just pumped.
So what's cool about this to me is that it's a lot of ways it's calling back to the unfinished episode of the Clone Wars that we didn't get, that had Boba Fett and Cad Bane standing off in a very much the same way, you know?
Right. And that's where Cad Bane was supposed to die there. So
he was supposed to die there, and that's where Boba Fett's supposed to get the helmet dent.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And we had talked when Boba Fett was brought back into the show the first time, we talked about how, like, well, that may still be canon. We don't know whether or not they're going to keep that as a part, like, because there are stories that were quote unquote unfinished with Clone Wars that have come back and redone. There's things that have been referenced in that stuff that's never been seen, but quote unquote still kind of be canon, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's at this point it's still kind of unclear. He does have the helmet dent that's always been there. Are they going to explain that in a different way, or is it going to be because like this? Or like, are we going to get another kind of like standoff like we get here, right? Like, are they going to do it twice? It seems unlikely, right?
I doubt it. Yeah.
But there is something cool about the idea that Cobb and Bane have this standoff, and then when Bane confronts Boba again, that they reference that standoff that they had where he gets the helmet, that, like, so that maybe it is still canon. We just don't know.
Still canon, but it's just a slightly different outcome. Yeah, man. This whole scene is just so good. Seeing Cad Bane in live action was awesome. Like, they did such a good job with the way he looks.
It was so cool, right? Like they have the same voice actor, so it's not
incredible.
It's so awesome, right? So they have Corey Burton doing the voice. Of course, Corey Burton has done lots of different voices and whatnot, but he's been in the Animaniacs, he's been in Mickey Mouse stuff, he's played different characters in Star Wars, right? Mm-hmm. And he's done a lot. He's a long-time voice actor. It's just really cool that they just brought that same actor back to. I'm
so glad they did. It would have been shitty if they brought like some other voice actor and they just weren't quite as good, or it didn't sound quite enough. So
he does.
It was perfect.
Totally nail it, I think. In his line readings here
makes sense, but
so. Love that, and the look is cool. I know that, like, I don't know if you saw this on Twitter today, and it was like people are like totally ragging on it a lot. Where it's like, hey, someone, no, they're like someone fixed quote unquote Bane to make it look more like the Clone Wars version, where they like move his mouth up a little bit or down a little bit. Sorry, made his face a little bit more blue. it wasn't much of a change, and people were like, "Oh, that's cool," but then everyone people are like, "Can we stop doing this?" Like,
yeah,
this looked fine. He's also so much older than the last time we saw him. Maybe that's why he's more pale. Like,
and it's just unnecessary because it looked so good. It's like, yeah, like not every animated character is going to translate exactly well to live action. Like we've already seen this with like Ahsoka's like Leku's and kind of entrails. It's just like some things just don't make as much sense, or like I'm sure they probably designed it relatively close and we're like, oh, it looks kind of weird if we like live action have his mouth too low or whatever. But no, I thought it looked so
it can't
cool.
Be.
And
it's a human being underneath prosthetics. Their mouth has to be where their mouth is mostly. Like, you know what I mean?
That's what I mean. It's just kind of whatever. But no, the whole way they introduced him with his hat down low, and you don't get to see his eyes a bit. You just get to see his
because imagine
teeth.
if you didn't know who Cad Bane was, right? Because which is a lot of people who don't. I know that for a fact.
It's true.
And so it's like you don't know who this is. You see this cool. It's like a cool mouth. You're like, okay, that's a cool alien. That you see he's very like scary. Tubes out of his face, which are always like a very distinct look. Mm-hmm. And then he looks up, and the eyes are these glowing red. It's such a amazing reveal. Like for those who already know, we're already giddy, and then we see the eyes. It's like how it just works. Like it totally they totally nail it, right? So anyway, we go through the scene here. Cobb notices and that someone's coming into town. He tells this girl named Jo to get the people inside. Also classic Western stuff, right?
Yeah.
Including by the way, when they both are they're looking out from the windows on the side and stuff later.
Yeah.
Cobb walks to the middle of the street as the stranger continues to approach. The deputy wants to help and doesn't want to leave Cobb out alone. The stranger arrives in town and lets Cobb and tells Cobb that whatever Boba, he calls him Fett though, which I think is cool. Whatever Fett is paying you, they'll match as long as he doesn't interfere, right? The deputy chimes in with the marshal's not for sale,
yeah.
And the look that Cobb gives him is priceless in my opinion. He just looks at him. He gives him the biggest stink eye, like, "Oh my god, I can't believe you just said that."
Oh yeah,
how
he's just
embarrassing.
Like, "Get out of here."
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, are you looking at the same guy I'm looking at right now?
Yeah, like this.
Yeah,
this is terrifying. Why are you like hide behind that wall like you were before?
Yeah, exactly. Like this is not the person to like try and like whatever you call it, like tough arm. It's like get inside. Like where you're just like annoyed.
Yeah, I just thought the look was so good. Totally like rolls his eyes. So Cobb tries to get the stranger's name again. So sorry, I didn't catch your name. And then this is when he lifts his hat to reveal his red eyes.
Yeah, so good.
And he says, "I'd be careful where I was sticking my nose if I were you." And Cobb's response is that friendly advice or a threat.
Right.
Cool stuff. Bane tells him about Boba. He says that he's a cold-blooded killer who worked for the Empire. Now, I thought this was a really cool addition, right? Because what Bane's trying to do is trying to get him like, hey, listen, don't work for Boba Fett. Like, it's not going to go the way you want. Just stay out of it, and we'll pay you to stay out of it, right? And furthermore, in case you needed more proof that you should stay out of it, you should know that Boba Fett used to be an agent of the Empire. You should just know that, right? Yeah. Which I think is like an interesting, cool little thing to like slip in there, right?
Which it's also really funny to me to have Cad Bane telling somebody else that Boba Fett's a cold-blooded killer. It's like, so are you.
Yeah.
Like, what? It's like he is notoriously one of the most dangerous bounty hunters. Like we even see throughout Clone Wars and everything, like him going to toe-to-toe with like Anakin, Ahsoka, like Obi-Wan, and like holding his own. Like he's not someone that should be taken lightly, right? So it's just so funny. And then even is he fighting? Yeah, he fights Fennec in Bad Batch as well. Like I don't know. We've seen Cad Bane mess people up so many times that it's just funny to hear him be like, "Oh yeah, be wary about that guy."
Yeah.
What?
Well, I think again, it's come back to that idea that he's just trying to throw some fear, uncertainty, and doubt into.
For sure. It's like, oh, you're gonna side with that guy? Like he's an Empire
sketchy
supporter.
guy. Like I'm a sketchy guy, but he's also a sketchy guy. And he's asking you to fight, and I'm just asking you to sit back and not do anything.
Yeah, right? I'm paying you to do nothing, which I guarantee you, he's also gone to like the Trandoshans and the other guys there too.
The one thing that's interesting, I think, is that like, do you think he was responsible for killing all the Sand people? and then they had blamed that he maybe like framed them for that murder. That framed the biker gang.
Yeah, I'm not too sure when they, like, obviously we don't really know when Cad Bane has come
how long he's been involved.
How long he's been involved with the Pikes. Like, I assume he got sent there because of what happened with Cobb Vanth and those Pikes at the beginning of the episode, right? So it's not necessarily because of Boba or because Mando was there. I think it's because he gets sent there and then he sees Mando and he's like, okay.
I think there's more to it than that because he says later, Bane says, you should have never given up your armor, right?
Oh right, yeah. So I guess he's been there for a while then.
He knows enough. He certainly has done his research at least, right? He has a lot of information about who Cobb Vanth is, right? He knows his name. He knows he had armor. He probably knows it was Boba Fett. He knows it was Boba Fett's armor.
Boba Fett's armor,
right? He knows exactly. So like he actually he's probably more well equipped for this whole thing than Cobb is. Right?
Oh, for sure.
He doesn't have all that information, but I just think that's interesting that he's revealing that he has all this information. I think that's fascinating. So he pulls back his duster to reveal the holster. And so obviously we know what's going to happen here. They stare each other down. The deputy slowly approaches. He is jumpy, right? Which I think
he's so twitchy.
But I love how he's kind of like walking like bow-legged too. Kind of like it's like you don't need to walk like that. No one's riding horses here, but I think it just totally works.
They're riding banthas. It's probably worse.
Right. I just did the motion. Like a bantha. This causes this like his deputy being jumpy. This causes Cobb to lose a little focus. He's like looking over to the left, and you're like, no, this is bad. I was on the edge of my seat.
Me too. And this is the thing also about Cad Bane is like we don't really know what his sight of vision is because he doesn't have pupils, so you can't see necessarily like where he's looking when he moves his eyes, or whether he can see both of them at the same time or what. So that's kind of the thing where it's like you can kind of slowly see Cobb's Vanth's eyes like going towards his deputy, right? Like it's about to happen. I'm like, fuck, he's gonna look at him and then it's gonna be bad.
But, well, and it's like, so he looks at him, but that's not even the bad part. He looks at him and then the deputy goes to pull his blaster.
Yeah.
And that's when Bane, who he pulls his, he puts one shot in Cobb's shoulder.
Yeah.
And then turns and puts 3 into the chest of his of his deputy.
Yeah.
Right.
All before the deputy can barely even get his gun out.
Yeah, it's
because again, it's always about Cad Bane. It has like the quickest draw too.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, he beat what's his name, Hunter, right, in a draw too.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Like it's just like he. Yeah.
So I just thought the show was there's no way. I was like, there's no way they're gonna kill Cobb Vanth. I was like, we've only been in one episode. They've got Timothy Oliphant, he's one of the coolest characters. People really like him. You're gonna kill him in this episode? I thought that was bold, but he's not dead. I don't think he's not dead.
No,
there's no way he's dead.
I think it kind of looks more like a upper, like either a shoulder shot.
It's in his
or
shoulder,
like upper chest, and B. I have 3 points here. The second one is, I think earlier, I feel like he has something under his shirt still. I don't think he's just shirt, nothing else. I feel like he's probably got. Maybe? I think he's probably got something under there because just the way he kind of said to Boba, like when he kind of says, careful. "Oh, I'm more careful," which is like I feel like he's A, more careful, but B, I feel like he's probably got something under there.
Maybe he got something up his sleeve.
Yeah, and then when I watched it with subtitles, you get a lot more of the chatter from the townspeople that you can't really hear, and you can see them saying like, "Get a med pack, get the stims."
Yeah,
like,
which the stims is cool because that's a reference to the last the Jedi Fallen Order. Which you use to upgrade your health.
Because they're like little stims. They're kind of like they always look like a needle, kind of. They just like stab them into, like almost like an EpiPen.
I think I think the idea is it's like it's what's it called? That shit.
Stimulant.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know what it is, but it's like the idea is it's like supposed to it's a healing agent of some kind.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. So or Bacta or whatever.
Yeah.
But, yeah. So it's like they're not saying he's dead or oh god he killed him. They're saying get stims, get the med.
Did you see one of the lines from the townsfolk is there's something wrong with the marshal?
Yeah, there's something wrong with the marshal. I know.
Yeah, there's something wrong. He has a bullet bullet in his shoulder. Yeah, that's what's wrong with him.
Fully got shot. I also really like the way Cad Bane's blaster sounds.
I was just gonna say that it's straight from the Clone Wars that like
it sounds just different. Yeah,
it's got like
it's kind
a
of
charging
like hollow
sound.
sounding.
Yeah, it's super. It makes it sound way more brutal than the other blasters you normally hear.
Yeah, it sounds so much cooler. Like I don't know. I love Cad Bane. He's one of my favorite kind of like villain.
He's a great
villain.
Characters. He's a great villain.
And I think it's always been about the cowboy hat, and he's kind of got that southern drawl.
Well, he's like a 1-for-1 pulled out of like spaghetti westerns.
Oh yeah,
he's just
like
he
half
just
the time
is
he's chewing
archetype.
on a toothpick, but he's very clever and
I would have loved to have seen a toothpick in this episode. That would have been fun. Apparently, the original, like, so when he first appears in the show, and when you first see him, it's very much like a noir aesthetic. In his first appearance in Clone Wars, and he's chewing on that toothpick. Originally, they wanted a cigarette. They wanted like a death stick or whatever.
Oh, okay.
Which I assume is death stick. Is that a equivalent of a cigarette, or is a death stick more like drugs?
I feel like a death stick's more like drugs.
Okay.
I've always thought of it
like
as
heroin.
something. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I kind of always thought of it like, this is going to sound so stupid, like a pixie stick, but with spice in it.
Okay, fair enough. That is funny. Do you want to buy some death sticks?
Yeah.
You want to go home and rethink your life.
Yeah, I've always definitely known like drugs. It's not just like a simple cigarette.
That's fair.
It's something worse.
Well, they don't really. Do people smoke cigarettes in Star Wars? I don't think they do. Anyway, so they decide not to because it's like, this is a kid show. We'll just give him a toothpick. So that's one of the interesting things that they. Anyway, neither here nor there. So the last line we get from Bane is, Tatooine belongs to the Syndicate. As long as the spice keeps running, everyone will be left alone. As Bane walks off, never having revealed his name, the townsfolk rush to Cobb's side, call for the doctor, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
Really amazing scene. Anything else you want to mention about this standoff?
No, I think we just covered it. I'm just... My mind was blown at this point. I did not think we were going to get live action Cad Bane. So,
yeah, I mean, it's.
I was pumped.
It's, when Dave Filoni does an episode, you're like, ooh, maybe there's gonna be a fun reference. Maybe there's gonna be some cool characters from Clone Wars that we haven't seen. I don't think I was expecting Cad Bane. I don't even know what I was expecting necessarily, but it was really
not this episode,
cool,
but
fun thing.
I mean, say what you want about this. This series as a whole.
Sidetrack,
we've got some cool characters. Like, they brought in Chrysanthemum, like live action Chrysanthemum. We've got live action Cad Bane. Like, man, Luke.
I'm
Luke, another Rancor. Like, man, I'm pretty pumped. Danny Trejo.
Yeah, Danny Trejo as the Rancor trainer.
Yeah, it's like they've brought in some cool stuff that hopefully we will get to see more of in.
I saw a funny tweet. It was like, you're like, who's that big hairy beast? They're like, that's Danny Trejo.
Yeah,
and they're like talking. It's like, oh, I thought you meant the Rancor. Essentially,
I saw all the replies to that, and a lot of them were like, "You need to delete this. How dare you disrespect Danny Trejo?"
Machete himself?
Yeah, there was more people upset about the disrespect to Danny Trejo.
That's funny. Danny Trejo's like, he's cool, but like he's not like I guess you just like he's been in enough. He's only been in a few things, so he has like that kind of like, and he's carved out a very specific image.
He has a very
so like he hasn't burnt any bridges. You know what I'm saying? Like people will defend him because like what else are they like? What else are they going to talk about? With Danny Trejo, it's not like he's that great. He's just, in my opinion, he's great. He's fine. But he's not the second coming of Luke Skywalker. Anyway.
Yeah. But no, I love this whole westerny.
Oh, it's so
good.
Scene.
It was incredible.
I love when Star Wars is Western.
Me too.
Yeah. Well, this does a great job of, by the way, like the two main kind of influences of Star Wars always been like Japanese samurai film, Akira Kurosawa, and that's a lot of that stuff we get with Luke, right?
Right.
Training Grogu, and then of course the other major influence is Western films. So this has both of those things, and like it really like leaned into them in their own way. They're not really blended together like they were kind of in the Mando episode where Ahsoka's introduced, where it's like very much a Western and Jedi, the samurai story mixed together. This is kind of like two of them next to each other, but it's cool.
Yeah.
So cut to, this is where, this is by the way where things start getting weird for me in terms of like pacing and the choices of like how we're going to end this episode, right?
Mm-hmm.
The next scene after this really amazing standoff that has like all this tension, and then it's like left on this like interesting note. Is he dead? We don't know. We cut to Garza's sanctuary next, and it's all like joyful music, and everyone's having a good time, right? And it's like, well, that's kind of an odd tonal shift, you know?
Yeah.
And we see two Pikes entering the bar. They're carrying a Camtono. They're greeted by a protocol droid who takes their order.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, the Camtono, that's the ice cream maker.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean the ice cream maker?
Yeah. So we see shots of the band again. Max Rebo's not there. It's his day off, I guess.
I was gonna ask you about this.
Yeah, well, he's not there. He survives another one.
I was looking through the crowd and I was like, I think it's so funny that they left him out of there because, I was going to basically, if we didn't talk about it on here, I was going to tweet at you and be like, real question though, is Max Rebo still alive?
Oh, yeah, of course he is.
And where are his legs?
I think ultimately he has like connections to the mob because he knows when to not show up to work.
When to not be there. Yeah, it's so funny.
So the two Twi'leks from that we saw from the episode 1 are there. They come to offer to clean their helmets just like they did for Mando in episode 1, but they're like, no thanks. And they report back to Garza and they're like, they're not interested. I didn't feel like they tried that hard, to be honest.
Not really.
And I felt like listen, we've all been. I've been. You're a bartender. I'm a bartender. We've all worked in the service industry. Like they come up and they're like, "Hey, can I clean your helmets?" They're like, "No, okay, bye."
Yeah.
Like, they didn't really try. Like it's like you're not gonna put on a little charm. Like nothing.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
Okay, whatever. They don't have much longer to worry about it because the as the droid is returning with their order, which they made so fast. I guess this is what the perks of having robots for servers. They just everything's super quick.
Yeah.
The two Pikes, they walk out, and the droid's like, "Hey, you forgot your Cantono." And then I love how they shot this, by the way, because you see Garza's face, right?
Yeah.
As she hears the droid
knows.
say that, and she's like, her eyes wide, and then we cut to outside, and boom, explosion. Right?
Yeah.
Very much.
Knew that was coming.
Very classic mob movie style stuff.
100%.
Here, right?
Yeah.
The concept art shows the explosion from the inside, but I'm guessing they didn't do that because it's a Disney show.
A bit too much, yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit much.
Yeah.
That we get what's going on. I think that I give them credit for blowing up a bar at all in a Disney show. So.
I mean, yeah, that's true.
Anyway, that's cool. What did you make of this mob hit, essentially?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely wasn't expecting it. So, but I mean, as soon as you see the Pikes walk in somewhere, you're like, oh man, something's gonna happen.
Right, that's true.
So, and it just makes sense, right? Like this club or this casino place is affiliated with Boba. Like they pay him tribute or whatever.
It's the only place we know because they've never showed us anywhere else.
Yeah. And it's a strategic hit to hurt him in his territory, right?
Yes,
like that's a very
100%.
Pointed move to be like,
it's a message.
What's up? It's a message. Yeah, it's definitely like okay, like you wanna go, we'll go then, and we're gonna attack your bar.
Do you think that's the like? Is everyone in there dead? They're all dead, right?
Yeah, I don't know. By the look of that blast, the way it came out of the doors, I would say most of them are probably dead.
I feel bad for Jennifer Beals. I liked her character. I thought she was a cool. Garza Fwip was a cool character.
She's 100% dead because she was right there.
Yeah,
like it's. I don't.
Well, someone has to. I mean, I guess it. Like I get. Someone's got to die. It ain't. They already shot Cobb Vanth in the shoulder. He's gonna survive. So you know.
Maybe you can get away with like the band was too far away.
Yeah, I don't know.
So maybe the oboe player will be fine.
Finger and Dan.
Yeah,
I don't think so. I feel like he's for sure out of there.
R.I.P.
Yeah, R.I.P. Finger and Dan. That's right. So okay, and then again, another weird selection here. So I understand what the idea was. Like we want to end on this monumental choice. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I feel like you could have told this part of this story, this scene, could have been in sequence with the other Luke and Grogu stuff.
Yeah,
and then
I
you
think so
see
too.
what's happening with Mando on Tatooine, and it gives weight to the choice. Now you're saying, oh well, if he doesn't choose the chainmail, then he's not going to be able to help Mando. Look what's going on over here. And I think instead you could have ended on, and you could have reorganized this a bit. You could have moved the Garza sanctuary hit to before the meeting with Fennec. Redone that scene a little bit where they talk about it's like, oh shit's on now,
Yeah,
maybe
that's
Boba
true.
actually gets a line of dialogue.
He's pissed.
And then we say, okay, well, we're gonna need soldiers. Then Mando goes and tries to recruit Cobb Vanth. We get that scene. He leaves. And then we get the standoff, and it ends on him getting shot.
It ends with the Cad Bane standoff. Yeah, that's true.
Wouldn't that? I feel like that's a much better paced episode, in my opinion.
I mean, yeah, fair. I didn't. Either way, I didn't mind it, but you're right. Like that would have made a little bit more sense, just kind of for the flow of things, because it's kind of funny how we go back to Luke and Grogu, and then it's like, okay, so like, are we gonna start with them again at the beginning of the episode, or are we going straight to?
I mean, you have to. You have to presume. I mean, based
know,
off how we ended last episode with, I got to visit a small friend of mine.
I know. Or is that kind of like, well, we'll see this in the next season of The Mandalorian. Like maybe we'll see his choice there.
I don't think so. I don't think because, and this we're talking about this at the top of the episode, right? Like, how does this play into the larger story? How does this fit for this Book of Boba Fett story? The only way it fits is if this element is closed, that this loop is closed before the season ends.
That's
in my
true.
opinion.
Yeah, I have no idea how they're, like I said, I don't. Next week better be an hour-long episode.
There's gonna be, I hope so too. I think here's the thing. I'm really coming along. The more we talked about it, the more I think that we are going to see Luke come to Tatooine next week, and I think that'll be fascinating. I think the resolution of the Pike stuff will be the least interesting part, and that whatever happens between Boba, Luke, and Mando is going to be what's interesting. And
for sure, because it's like you kind of wonder, like, where's Luke gonna fall on this? Yeah, I don't know. It's just kind of because Luke might just be like, "This isn't my fight. Like, I'm a Jedi. I'm not like a. You're all criminals,
right. That's true.
He's just gonna,
He just kills them all. He just cuts their heads off.
Yeah. He'd be like looking at Boba and be like, you tried to kill me.
A Luke versus Cad Bane standoff. How cool would that be?
Oh, that'd be cool.
Luke kills Bane like that. I mean, he's been around long enough. Like, I feel like
I'm gonna be pissed if they kill Cad Bane.
I don't think so. I think that would give Luke some cool credibility. Like we've never seen him do anything cool as a Jedi, really. Since Return of the Jedi. So
I just think it's such a waste to finally give us Cad Bane live action and then kill him the next episode.
Yeah, but I can see it working on a character level.
I just feel like if they're gonna let someone kill him, it's got to be Boba Fett. You know what I mean? Because that makes more sense with the
no, let me do it.
Yeah, it makes more sense with kind of the scrapped episode from the Clone Wars stuff. But
how much do we as the audience really care about Bane and Boba Fett's backstory, like history together?
I do.
No, but like their history. But what is their history together?
Unofficially, their history is that basically, so Cad Bane was trained by Jango, and in turn, he then trained. And then in turn, he kind of trained Boba Fett when Boba was young.
That's why he's got the same, like the two blasters. They're very similar. I think they have the same.
Yeah, so they do have like a history of like basically Boba from when he takes off. Like he grew up with those bounty hunters.
Is that all implied? We saw that. We didn't see that arc, right? In Clone Wars, so that's just implied, right?
I don't know if it's in any. I don't know if it's canon anywhere. If it's in some.
I feel like the only episodes that that Boba arc we get in the Clone Wars has him hanging out with
Aura Singh,
and that the dude who looks like a mummy, and
Dangar.
Yes, that's right, and Bosk. Yeah. Right?
And Bosk. Yeah, I feel like Cad Bane's up in there too a little bit.
I don't feel like if he is there, I don't know if he's like, they don't have a history yet at that point. Boba does.
Yeah.
Listen, it's implied.
I know they have a history,
but from all things considered, right? You could say what's gonna be emotionally effective. I don't think that like this big big history element between Boba and Cad Bane is gonna be played up because it's not really been shown anywhere.
Yeah, that's fair.
And like when is it going to be shown? Are they going to go back and recreate those episodes? No, they're not.
No, that's true.
Right? Clone Wars is over.
Oh, they're going to start the history now. I don't know.
And like, what are you going to do? Flashback in you could flashback in live action, I guess. But I just feel like it's just, to me, I don't know if that's how it works. I mean, there's something to be said about a Jedi, and that Cad Bane's killed other Jedi, so there's like a cool
Yeah.
element there. I don't know. We'll just see how it plays out. But there's a lot of possibilities. I just feel like whatever happens with the Pikes, like I said, is gonna be the least interesting part. So
yeah, probably.
anyway, let's finish this last scene. We see that first structure in Luke's academy has been finished. It's been built by those ant droids. Inside, we find Luke and Grogu. Luke reveals to Grogu that the gift from Mando is the chainmail. Everyone expected that. I think though, the chainmail is not like wouldn't fit over his head. Is how like that's what it looks like to me. Like I don't think it would actually work. Anyway, whatever.
You just step into it.
In a lot of ways, it's like it'll protect him. It's a lot of ways it's like the mithril vest from Lord of the Rings. You know that Frodo that they all wear, protects them from anything. It saves him from being stabbed or whatever. So that's cool. In retrospect, it almost makes more sense for Mandalorians to wear chainmail instead of these big plate armor around. If you think about it, just like wear it under your clothes, no one would even see it's there. You can't
Yeah.
Or maybe it's only effective against small fire. Like maybe the plate armor is better against bigger shots or something like that. I don't know. Like does the chainmail work in the same way? If Grogu gets shot in the chest, where he's wearing this chainmail, does it bounce off? Like it bounces off of Mando?
I don't know. I don't think we've ever seen Beskar chainmail, so
we've never seen chainmail in Star Wars. Period. I don't think.
I mean, yeah, and especially I think with Mandalorians specifically, like their armor is kind of like their religion, just like their weapons, and it's like a symbol. It's not necessarily about the way it looks. But I find chainmail seems less practical than like full plate because chainmail has holes, and like a lightsaber is light.
So do you think?
So couldn't it go through the holes? I don't know.
That's a great question.
And blasters are also like light or like some kind of energy. Like, couldn't that get through it? It's not really a bullet, but yeah.
So like, what is it
know.
then? So what's it doing then?
Well, chainmail is for like it's kind of like cuts. In battle in general. Like medieval chainmail is better for like slashing, and damage, but it's not necessarily as good for
like. It can't protect you from a stab.
Yeah, it's like piercing damage is a little bit different, but it's better against slashing.
But how does that apply in Star Wars? Like, so you can take like a glancing blow, but you can't like a dead shot. It's not going to work. Like,
I have no idea.
I also don't want to see. I also don't want to
get shot and tell me
Grogu get shot to find out. Also, you know.
I guess it just depends how like small the links are, and like Beskar is like super strong, so maybe just flex things a little bit better. But
maybe
I guess we'll just have to see it in action to really know.
Yeah. Wait, there's only one way to find out.
Yeah.
So
put a baby in chainmail.
Yeah, that's right.
And shoot
him. Don't do this at home. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's like, listen, here's your gift, but before you take it, I'll give you a choice. And from a box, Luke reveals a small lightsaber. He says it belonged to Yoda.
So tiny.
And he offers it to him, and it's a cute little lightsaber. It's still too big for him, though. If you think about it.
Oh, he won't even. His tiny little hands won't even be able to hold that.
Yeah, no, not at all. Right? Because it's like, oh yeah, no, don't worry. Grogu's gonna come to the rescue. He's gonna have the lightsaber and the chainmail. He's gonna be flipping around just like Yoda. No, that's not.
I wanted to see him with a little baby lightsaber so bad, like one the size of like a chapstick or like a lighter, because he has such small hands.
So it's like that. Like the blade is only like the length of like your phone.
Yeah, it would just be like the tiniest little like blade. It'd just be so little, like a little pocket knife size lightsaber.
Yeah, no, that would have been cool. But I mean, like, listen, getting Yoda's lightsaber is still also really cool. I think that has
incredible. Yeah,
that's some really like interesting play there. You know, like I said before, it rhymes.
Yeah.
So Luke says you may choose only one. If you choose the armor, you will return to the Mandalorian, but you'll be forsaking the way of the Jedi. But if you choose the lightsaber, you'll be my first student, and I'll train you to be a great Jedi.
I know.
So there is some extra fine print though. Because he says, look, and if you take the lightsaber, it'll take many years. You may never see the Mandalorian again. Now, my question to you is, which emphasis was he putting on the may? Was he putting on like you're not allowed to see him ever again, or it's possible that you'll never see him again? Which way did you interpret that?
I interpret it as like more like, I guess it's more of a possibility than it being a requirement. But also, it's if he chooses the lightsaber, it's going to be a little bit more of like a serious dedication and the giving away of attachments. So a little bit more of like, you probably, if not necessarily that I'm going to keep you from seeing him, but you need to kind of get rid of your attachment. So you're going to more like you're going to have less and less of a want or a need to see him. You're not going to miss him as much because you're going to be taught how to not have these attachments and these feelings. So yeah, I just hope they can kind of find kind of like you said at the beginning, it's a little bit of a test, but maybe he gets a little bit of a middle ground because I just want to
be
see
a middle ground.
I agree.
Because of course we want to see him train as a Jedi. Of course we want to see that, right?
Yeah, but then of course we also want to see him interact with Mando every once in a while.
Why would there also? Well, there wouldn't be a little spot in the back of his ship if it wasn't for
Exactly.
It's got. That's what it's for. Yeah. So anyway,
it's not for a dog. It's for Baby Yoda.
We talked about this a little bit already. It'll be fascinating to see what happens here. I feel like that's what we're going to pick up with at the beginning of next episode. Or we won't, and we'll find out what the result is by something happening in the middle of the episode.
Yeah.
But it does feel a little cruel to do that.
I know. It broke my heart a little bit.
Yeah.
All I know is that I have no clue what's going to happen next episode because I was completely wrong about what was going on in this episode. Or I did not think any of this was going to happen this episode.
Well, yeah, I assumed that this episode was going to be more like the second half of this episode. Like it's going to be all of this and none of the first half.
It was going to be more about army building and pikes and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, like the stuff that they had set up. So, listen, we're not going to rehash this. We talked about this at the top. It's a great episode, but it feels weird that it's here. It just does. We will hold all of our judgment until next week to see how it pays off.
Absolutely.
In my opinion, there's only one way this pays off in a satisfying way, and it seems unlikely. But who knows?
I'm more open-minded, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you feel like, oh yeah, Luke's for sure gonna show up at Tatooine next week.
I don't think he will. I don't know. But I also didn't think I'd see him at all in these episodes. So I guess we'll see. I have a feeling that Luke would be like, that's not my place, but we'll see. Yeah. I just feel like he wouldn't care about two rival gangs on Tatooine.
Why did we spend all this goddamn time? I don't it just doesn't make sense otherwise. So
I know.
Yeah. So I guess at the end of the day, I mean, but here's the thing. What if this? How about this then? I was just about to close it up, but this just came to mind. What if Luke does arrive and he wouldn't care about two rival gangs? He's not going to endorse some other, you're just replacing Jabba. Oh, that's fine.
He's not going to care.
He's not going to. But so what if by his arrival he forces Boba to have to take a different path? You now can't be the because is this, like I said at the beginning, at the very beginning of the season, what's the outcome of the ending of the season? Oh, don't worry, he's now sitting on the throne and no one's challenging him. He's now the crime boss of Mos Espa, and everyone's scared of him. What? No, that doesn't make is that satisfying? Maybe in some ways, because they set up that story to be that's the conclusion. But I think the more interesting thing here would be how can we bring Boba into more interesting stories now? And maybe the way to do that is to bring Luke into the fold.
Yeah, honestly, I guess that would make a little bit more sense. So, I mean, I guess we're just going to have to wait and see. No spoilers, you people out there.
Yeah,
wait those 24 hours.
Just wait one day. That's all I ask. And I know people
will block
not.
You on Twitter.
Well, yeah, I should have blocked that guy. I didn't. But here's the thing. It didn't it's not. I didn't even follow that person. It appeared in my feed
on Twitter
because I follow the Star Wars on Twitter. What's it called? The topic. So you'll get you'll get just random ass shit, and I like that. It's mostly fun stuff, but
me too. But then you get the occasional.
Yeah. And I can't stay off Twitter all day. I'm only human.
No. No. 24-hour wait, people.
Yes.
Have some common courtesy.
We're all super stoked and looking forward to it. And, who knows? Maybe by the end of this next week's episode, we'll also get a trailer for Obi-Wan, and then we can really get stoked for what's going on. I'm really excited. How's this going to play out? Didn't expect this to be such a big mystery by the end, but here we are.
Yeah, me neither. I guess we'll see.
Here we are. Okay, so on that note, we will wrap things up here. Again, follow us on Twitter at TowerBabbleCast, Facebook.com/TowerBabbleCast. Thanks to anyone who tuned in and listened to us live. We do this every Thursday night around 7:30, 8 o'clock p.m. Central. And you can find this on YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch. And if you want to find everything that we do, head over to towerbabble.ca to find links to the main show, the Tower Babble podcast, and all sorts of other fun stuff. And if you have any questions, comments, maybe you have an idea of what's going to happen next week, towerbabble podcast gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. If you're not going to jump in on the chat, well then, hey, we'll read your email on the air. So we'd love to hear it. And a quick reminder, if you want to help support the show, patreon.com/Tower Biblecast. We'll be doing Gone Girl, David Fincher's Gone Girl this month for the film club with potentially a special guest. Crossing my fingers, should be really exciting if that does come to pass. But you can find that over on Patreon. So with all that being said, thank you so much for listening to this 2 hours of us ramble on Star Wars. What an exciting episode. Can't wait to see what happens next. We'll talk to you next week. May the Force be with you.